welcome to the governing board meeting. We're reconvening after our executive session. We'll first go through some substitutions. We have Ray Rivera for Sherry Olson at South Mountain, Yura Brimage for Anasali at Phoenix College, and Patrick Buckart for Sean Penn from Mesa College. Welcome to all of you. I'd like to now ask Dr. Glassberg to make an introduction for us.
Mr. Sauer, members of the board, it is my pleasure tonight to introduce to you our new Vice Chancellor for Human Resources, Ms. LaKoya Sheldon Johnson. She is a 3-decade resident of the great state of Arizona. She recently served as the Chief Human Resources Officer with the Arizona Department of Administration, where she provided leadership for the delivery of a full range of human resources and organizational development services to approximately 70 state agencies, boards, and commissions, employing approximately 11,000 employees. Prior to this role, LaKoya served as Director of Human Resources and Development with the Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System, Access, which is the state's Medicare agency responsible for providing access to comprehensive health care to well over 1 million Arizonans in need. During her tenure, LaKoya led the organization through a complex reform of the state's personnel system and was instrumental in directing the rollout of a new online competency-based performance management system, the first of its kind in state government. So we'd like to welcome her and wish her well with bringing her talents to Maricopa. Thank you.
Welcome. And now, Mr. Lum, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Lum. Obviously, we have a lot of people here, and you can see we've got some chairs up front, so we're going to reorder the agenda a little bit to accommodate students and their need to study. So we'd like to ask the student life from Gateway Community College to come up next. And then we'll have the Scottsdale Community College group and others.
Good evening, and thank you, President Burke, governing board members, Chester, Glasper, CEC, and distinguished guests. My name is Anaya Williams, and I am the Vice Chair of Student Activities Management at Gateway Community College. Presenting on leadership and development is Anais Maddox.
Hi, my name is Anais Maddox, and I'm the president of Black Student Union. At Gateway Community College, we offer many leadership opportunities. In the fall, 18 students attended the MCCCD 3-day Student Life and Leadership Retreat at Pine Summit Camp in Prescott. We left there with an awareness on how to be an inclusive leader, how to market our events, and techniques on how to assess our leadership traits. In November, 32 student leaders attended the American Student Government Association Conference in Los Angeles, California. At this student government training conference, we learned recruiting and retention techniques from passionate presenters. The real power of the conference came from making connections with other student leaders from across the country. While in Los Angeles, we took this opportunity to visit the Museum of Tolerance. The museum challenged us to understand the history on the Holocaust and examine the many forms of prejudice and discrimination in our world today. This year, MCCCD Leadership Institute will be held from May 18th to the 23rd at Chandler Gabriel Williams campus and ASU Polytechnic. What is the Leadership? Leadership is a 6-day leadership experience offered to students across the United States. 7 students from Gateway will participate in team building and individual character building activities that will focus on leading with integrity. Next is a presentation about Gateway campus events and activities.
We forgot our slideshow. Excuse me. Okay. All right. Hi, my name is Anastasia Henry, and I am the events manager of SAM Council. At Gateway Community College, we offer several different events and activities where students can volunteer and get involved in program planning and club events. SAM Council hosts several activities on campus, including Pizza with the College President, student forums, and the Gateway Community College Holiday Buffet, which is open to our students and their families. Tomorrow, March 26th, we will host our spring event. Spring means clear skies, sunny days, and Gateway Community College's annual Geckoland Carnival. Every year, Gateway students gather on campus for food, fun, family, and entertainment, and good company. The carnival is free and open to the public, and we want you guys to join in on our fun. Carnival, Brazilian. SAM Council also hosted a presentation called Face to Face in a Frenzy, a one-man show by mask maker Zarco Guerrero. We also helped plan the Navigating Your Fate initiative. FATE stands for Financial Awareness, Teaching, and Education. The Financial Awareness Carnival was a week-long event. The activities included a financial-based seminars along with free FAFSA and tax preparation services. In April, during Genocide Awareness, SAM Council will also participate in the Human Library. The Human Library is an innovative method designed to promote dialogue, reduce prejudices, and encourage understanding. Next is a presentation by Gateway clubs and organizations.
Hello again. There are a broad range of student clubs that explore a variety of activities and interests that promote social, cultural, and academic awareness. College is about exploration, finding your passions, and having fun. In September, Gateway held a club expo where students got a chance to gather information about the clubs on campus and decide which ones were right for them. This year, Gateway Community College clubs have been involved in many different activities. Student Nurses Association collected 2,282 pounds of canned food for St. Mary's Food Bank. Out of Ink Writing Club sent holiday greeting cards to our soldiers overseas. Geckos in Action hosted a spectacular bingo fundraiser. Club Insight and the Radiology Club adopted a family for the holidays. And World Explorers and several other clubs participated in Gateway's International Teen Coffee event. And Black Student Union hosted a luncheon to celebrate Black History Month. Thank you for your time and for giving us the opportunity to share with you the many events and activities going on at Gateway Community College. We hope to see you at our Geckoland Carnival tomorrow.
Thank you, students. Just a reminder to board members, if you get a chance to spend time at Leaderscape, it's time well spent. That's pretty impressive 3 or 4 days that our students who are in the leadership positions in their colleges get together and enhance those skills. So it's I've been to the 2 of them so far, and well worth the time. And I'm glad to see it's on one of our campuses this year. So congratulations, Dr. Luna. Next on the list, we would like to introduce Dr. Irene Kovala, who will introduce her fine musicians for us.
Mr. President, may I approach the podium?
You may.
President Burke, President Saar, my apologies, force of habit, President Saar, members of the board, Chancellor Glasper, CEC, and distinguished guests. It's my privilege to be the president of Glendale Community College and the fine overseer way up in the rafters of this organization that is in front of you tonight. I am pleased to introduce the Glendale Community College's guitar ensemble under the fine direction of Mr. Chuck Houlihan over here in the corner. Wave so we know who you are, please. And this octet that you see in front of you is nationally award-winning, having received the 2014 Guitar Foundation of America Ensemble Showcase Competition. It is the pinnacle of classical guitar in North America. Chuck Houlihan had entered these students in the competition as a surprise. He submitted a recording without telling them. Then he had the honor of calling to tell them not only had they been entered, but they had won the top prize in the country. At the upcoming Guitar Foundation of America convention in June, these students will perform before an international audience the world premiere of 2 new works for 8 guitars, written and dedicated to the GCC guitar ensembles by Rex Willis from Bradenton, Florida, and Mark Houghton from Liverpool, United Kingdom. So let me introduce these fine musicians to you. We have Alex Resnick, Andrew Davenport, Ricardo Ariza, Andrew Larry, Danny Metmeti, Hans Nischels, Armand Sanchez, and Joshua Mayo. They're going to perform for you tonight the second movement of a concerto by Antonio Vivaldi. They will also perform at the Orpheum Theater for the Artists of Promise event on Wednesday, April 9th, and at California State University Fullerton on Saturday, June 21st, during the 2014 Guitar Foundation of America Convention. I give you the Glendale Community College Guitar Octet.
Thank you, Dr. Kovala and these students. Good luck to all your competitions coming up. You've made us proud. And we'd like to invite more of our fine arts people to come to these things. We get front row seats. It's pretty awesome.
Mr. President, I would like to say something.
You may.
Guys, I want to be your manager.
Conflict of interest. Behave yourself.
It's awesome to see what our students are doing, both in their local college areas and throughout the valley. I said for a long time, the best value of entertainment in the valley are at the doors of our community colleges. So I encourage all of you to take advantage of the many, many, many nights of activities that our colleges provide the communities around them. So this is just a good example. Moving on, though, let's bring up the Mesa Community College Life-Saving Commendation.
Mr. President, may I
Yes.
approach the podium?
Yes, you may.
Mr. President, members of the board, I'd like to invite Dr. Patrick Burkhart, Provost of our Red Mountain campus, to come up and join me at the podium. He's representing Dr. Pan this evening, President of Mesa Community College. Tonight, we're recognizing the life-saving actions of one of our police officers, Officer Jack McLaren, who is assigned to the Mesa Community College campus. And as we start our presentation, I just briefly want to share with the board some of the accomplishments of the Department of Public Safety in the last couple of years. As I think you know, we underwent a major reorganization and centralization under Chief Longman, with all of the departments, all of the satellite or units at the colleges reporting to Chief Longman with a matrix reporting relationship to the administrative vice presidents at each campus. And this moved us from a system of 10 independent public safety departments to one department under one Maricopa philosophy. The chief also directed the implementation of a series of standard operating procedures called general orders based on best practices and industry standards, established professional standards supporting our commitment to openness and transparency, developed a close working relationship with the ASU Police Department, submitted and developed a minimum staffing plan, which was funded through resources the board provided, and added 11 new police officer positions, implemented a comprehensive record management system, deployed a state-of-the-art district-wide public safety radio system providing direct communications with local police, fire, and EMS, occupied a new public safety district operations building, including an emergency operations center for the system, as well as a public safety communications center for the system. Very pleased with all of these accomplishments and the fact that the chief is looking to have the department be accredited in the next few years. At this point, I would like to invite the chief, as well as Officer McLaren and Laura Lassiter, to come to the podium with me.
President Saar, Governing Board, Chancellor Glasper, CC, and my wonderful colleagues of Maricopa and Guest. It's truly our honor to recognize one of our fine police officers, Jack McLaren, who's assigned at Mesa Community College. He's been with us just a little less than a year. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Little less than a year. And I'm going to read citation and then be presenting him the department's life-saving award. I'm blocking Laura, but many of you know Laura from Mesa Community College, and she was the one that actually told Commander Korich and her administration of the wonderful work that Jack did when she was in trouble. So if you'll bear with me, the citation, life-saving commendation, presented to Police Officer Jack McLaren. On Wednesday, February 26, 2014, Police Officer Jack McLaren was on duty attending the groundbreaking ceremony for the new Enrollment and Student Success Center at Mesa Community College. When after the event, he noticed that Laura Lassiter, who's coordinator of public relations and special events, was apparently choking. Officer McLaren had been sitting at the table with her and recognized that she was in trouble. He assessed the situation, determined that the appropriate course of action was to perform the Heimlich maneuver, which he had to do several times. This action dislodged a piece of meat that was blocking her airway and immediately allowed her to resume breathing. Ms. Lassiter is adamant that Officer McLaren saved her life. He consistently demonstrates the highest level of professional competence. Due to his decisive and skilled response in a life-threatening emergency, Officer Jack McLaren is awarded the Department's Life-Saving Commendation on Tuesday, March 25th, 2014. Pin this off. Is that a zipper one? No. See if we can do this without drawing blood. I'll be back there.
He's not bleeding, is he?
It's blue, what can you tell? Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Officer. You know, on a district as large as ours, these things happen, and it's really good that we have the kind of people out there that help us when the time is needed. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we'll have a report from Dr. Harper Marinick regarding teacher preparation.
May I approach?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Mr. Saar, members of the board, Chancellor, CEC colleagues, and guests. I think we all know the importance of having excellent teachers in our classrooms, and I hope all of you know the critical role that we play in the teacher preparation of excellent teachers for the state of Arizona. So tonight, we would like to recognize and celebrate some of our great students and faculty, and they'll have a presentation with you. So I will introduce Dr. Tom Hopley, who is from Mesa Community College.
Dr. Harper Marinick, before you go, getting going, I just want to let you know we have this gift to you from Phoenix College, and the students wanted to make this especially for you, and thank you for all of the support that you've given them, and it's just a beautiful plaque that I wanted to give to you right away. So, President Saar, Governing Board, Dr. Glasper, thank you so much for this opportunity to be here and talk to you about the exciting things that are going on in teacher education in the Maricopa Community College District. We'd also like to thank the Maricopa Foundation and Helios, the various colleges for your support, the student clubs, and department funds. This is truly a One Maricopa effort, and this is why we're so excited here tonight. We have a very wide diversity of students that attend Maricopa Community Colleges and a wide diversity of students who are served in the teacher preparation program. Diversity in age, gender, background experiences, religion, and we do a fantastic job working with these folks. We offer really rigorous and relevant coursework at all 10 of our campuses, and right now I want to highlight a few of the really unique programs that we have going on at just a few of our colleges. At Stray Mountain, we have a Stray Mountain. Just go ahead and stand up, Pete. Okay, they have the other students. Courtney's also going to make sure to acknowledge all the students here in the office audience as well. They have a fabulous pre-K-12 grade literacy program that they offer in the New Life Center, and this provides an extremely important service in the community. Students in the Maricopa College at Stray Mountain write age-appropriate, standards-based lesson plans for each age group and in teams, and they teach literacy centers bi-weekly at the Domestic Violence Center. Shelter. They also offer a summer reading camp that every summer hosts a camp for 60 first through third grade children from the local elementary school district. Students are assigned a co-teacher and a small group of 7 to 10 children that they are responsible for during the 2-week period. Students teach reading fluency, reading comprehension strategies, and facilitate a reader's theater project, as well as tracking student achievement. And the program ends with a first third grade third grade readers theater performance for the parents, and they provide student teacher conferences for the parents. So absolutely a spectacular effort. Thank you so much. Paradise Valley Community College. I have and again, very busy with activities or so, but let me tell you a couple things about Paradise Valley. They have really great partnerships with the Paradise Valley Unified School District's Structured Autism Program. And then they have a great partnership with First Things First, Reading is Fundamental, Southwest Human Development, and Whole Foods, and they host a biannual Festival of Tales. So some really great work that's going on there. And then at Mesa, where I'm from, I'm very excited about what's happening there. We're in our second year of a $1.9 million U.S. Department of Education grant that is designed to increase the pool of highly prepared teachers of language learners, as well as provide support for teachers of language learners in various programs at the local Title I schools. And we offer a consortium where teachers get together and work. So far, we've recruited approximately 22 students from Mesa, who have completed a minimum of 150 service hours every semester for a total of over 3,500 service hours. We provide professional development for approximately 350 teachers of language learners through conference participation and professional development workshops. And then we've created a program website with professional development opportunities and resources. We have a really unique program, a literacy outreach program, that targets high schools and college students in need of academic support and creates opportunities for structured academic interventions. And over the past 2 years, this literacy outreach program has provided significant academic gains for 2Ts, increasing an at-risk subgroup of high school students. It's provided a significant increase in college placement exams for tutors and resulted in over 100 literacy outreach tutors completing requirements for an international tutor training certification. So very excited about what's going on at MCC as well. So at this point, what I'd like to do is to invite Courtney Yorba, who is one of the co-presidents of our student club, and she's going to talk a little bit about a fantastic opportunity that has been made possible by the governing board support and the incredible support of Dr. Hopper-Baranek.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is the most wonderful lady I've ever met. Say no. I kind of wandered into Mesa Community College completely unaware of my capabilities, and in a short 2 years, I am leaving pursuing being highly qualified in not one but 2 areas. And the professors at Mesa Community College, they really just show you what you're made of. And the way they do that is they give you service learning opportunities where you can go into a classroom and apply what you're learning. I will be rounding 600 hours by the time I leave the community college. And so I'll have years of experience underneath my belt, and I don't feel nervous about going into the classroom at all. I'm ready to be there now, but I still have 2 more years. So I'll be super excited by then. Each professor has made me, and I can speak for all of the students, I believe, has made us aware of all of the attention that requires of you being a teacher in the classroom. Not only am I sensitive to English language learners, but students with special needs, even struggling readers, math, people who need math. I need math help all the time. But coincidentally, I'm going for middle school math. Pushing myself a little bit there. And that's because of my professors. They have pushed me to go. They're like, Courtney, you can do it, just go. And so through all of our experience and our service learning that we've done, we actually went to the National Association for Community College Teacher Education Programs conference in California this year, and we were able to present what we are doing and just show on a national level what we are doing in the classroom and how we are being prepared to be teachers in the future. And it was really great going there, and all the funding we got, like Ton said, it was really a one Maricopa effort that we were able to go. And it was so amazing because you just got national feedback on what you're doing, and what really opened my eyes was on how everyone was so surprised at how much we are doing, and to us we're like, okay, well, this seems normal to us. We're used to going into the classroom 3 times a week and really just pushing ourselves to understand a classroom community better. And it was an amazing experience, and that was my 2nd year going. It was very exciting, and I hope to go again. We also got to see the passion that our teachers our professors have for us, that they're instilling in us for our students. And I just opened my eyes to how much our professors truly care about us and how much they're rooting for us to be great teachers. And so I couldn't be more thankful for the Maricopa Community Colleges. Thank you.
And I don't want it to go unnoticed. If I could have everyone here from the Maricopa Community Colleges across the district. As we talked, there were 5 colleges that went, 52 students from 5 colleges, and we all collaborated and worked together very hard. So if we could have all of the faculty and students from across the district who attended. All right, we've got some over there. It was just great work. And we have a gift for all of you as governing board members. We'd like to invite you to be honorary teacher education faculty and majors here in the Maricopa district. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I'm very impressed with your presentation and the education you're getting and the opportunity to be in a classroom your first 2 years. So often, I was a school counselor in an elementary school and on the board of an elementary school, and so some of our teachers at the time were coming in with very little classroom experience and just were getting overwhelmed and not knowing how to deal with the discipline. So it's just amazing that you starting this early, your first 2 years, and you guys are going to be awesome and you become teachers. We're so lucky.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I also want to make a comment. It was difficult for me not to get emotional about this. This is so exciting. We need to remember all the good that is happening in Maricopa County Community Colleges and all the amazing things that are happening. And remember that pride and that sense of what it is we do and what we do best and why we're on this board. This is it. This is it. And I want to tell you from a personal experience. I was going to college to become a teacher and had a teacher leave me, and I feel totally unprepared, to go have triplets. And I had no classroom experience and scared out of my head. And it was a horrible experience. It was a nightmare experience, and I'm so jealous of you. It was an absolute horrible experience to have that happen to me at 22 years old and not have a clue and be deer in headlights and panic-stricken. I am so jealous of you. You are so blessed, and I hope you always remember, even after you graduate from a university, if I ever find one of you that says, I graduated from any other university before you mention this community college system, I'm going to hunt you down. And I want to thank you again for coming tonight.
And yes. This might be the last time you get to leave early, but you're more than welcome to go back home and study some more. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, we have a presentation from Dr. Jan Gaylor from Scottsdale Community College.
Thank you. President Starr, members of the board, Chancellor Glasper, members of CEC. With your permission, I'd like to ask our Scottsdale Vice President for Academic and Student Affairs to introduce our presenter, whose message, I might add, will be yet again a different form of music to your ears. Dr. Moore.
Uh-oh.
Good.
President Starr, members of the board, Dr. Glasper, CEC, and guests. Some time ago, we looked at our developmental ed data, and we were not alone across the nation in being a little less than pleased about the results that we saw. The only logical thing to do at that point was to turn to our remarkable faculty to find a new way to address a vexing problem, as we all are across the district. We've done that for a couple of semesters now, and the early results are so encouraging, we thought we would come and give you a brief update on some of the innovations coming through our English and reading programs at the developmental level at Scottsdale Community College. And there's no one better to do that than a skilled educator and residential reading faculty, Sarah Cameron.
President Starr, governing board members, Chancellor Glasper, members of CEC, and our guests. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm trying to make this as interesting as possible without having to go into labor. I have 4 weeks left, so we should be in the clear. I am here to present on what we have been doing at SCC with regards to the reading and English innovations. Approximately 2 years ago, when the Developmental Education Council approached the board and presented the 6 different areas of innovation, SCC went back and took that to heart and really started working on that. So I have a lot of information, and I want you to know, don't feel pressed for all of it. I do have handouts of everything, and I have additional explanations that I'll present for you afterwards. And there'll be hopefully time for questions as well. Our model is kind of like building the Great Pyramid of Giza. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen by one person, but when we get there, we accomplish some amazing things. We originally started with developing some innovative programs in both reading and English. You'll see those in just a moment. We made sure that they were rigorous but student-centered and research-based. And there was a lot of research that other community colleges had done that didn't really fit our college. So we had to find what worked for our students and what worked for our system. And so that does take time in and of itself. From there, we did pilots because we didn't want to then just roll it all out and see, let's say, see what happens to all the students. So what we did is we took very small cohorts. From those cohorts, what we recognized is there were some enrollment issues with SIS, with advertising, with the students being a little bit resistant to something new. And so from there, we made adjustments, we made changes, we collected our data, and now we are in the scale up, the mentoring of our adjunct faculty so that they will be contributing as well and marketing them even wider to our students and as well as to our colleagues at other campuses. The reading innovations that I'm talking about cover the 071, 081, and 091 courses in the developmental education. As you can see from the illustration there, 071 students, when they tested into that level, they traditionally took 3 semesters. We have now condensed that to 2 semesters. While that still may seem like a large number, a large time frame as far as 1 year to complete, please be aware that for a reading student who tests into that level, they are reading at approximately a 3rd to 5th grade level, if not lower. So making academic progress within 1 year to make them be prepared for college material is substantial, and really something that shouldn't be ignored. The majority of the students will be testing into 81 or 91, approximately a 6th through 10th grade reading level. And from there, it's going to take them anywhere from 1 to 2 semesters and approximately 6 credits. This is how we are intensifying it, so a student can take both 81 and 91 in 1 semester if they're ready. That really applies to some of those students who are testing in at a higher reading level too. And lastly, we have the top portion of our 091 students who may be at a 10th to 12th grade level, and they are needing some refresher, they're just needing some additional support. We are in the process of piloting in the fall a 1 credit quick start for those students. So we are trying to reach all areas all at the same time. So to take a little look at the success, that's Timothy, who is one of my students. His smile lights up the room, so it's nice for me to see him here and giving me that support right now. The intensive reading, the successful course completion. Now this is when students will take in 1 semester 071 and 081. They'll meet 4 days a week, and they'll meet for an hour and 15 minutes each. They're with the same instructor, and after 8 weeks of instruction, they take an assessment, and if they are prepared, they move on to 081. If they are unprepared, they retake 071. That is a special and unique design that was developed by a collaboration of staff, faculty, administration throughout SCC. It was something that took much effort on many different areas of the college. In the 081, what they do is the same thing, only they take 081 and 091. So this is how they can essentially complete 1 semester. In 1 semester, they can complete 2 portions of the developmental sequence. As you can see from the successful course completion, in the red, that is our pilots. So those were our pilots from last fall of 2013, and it's being compared with the data from fall of 2012. So we're seeing some significant gains in this format. One thing I want to point out is in 071, you're not seeing a significant gain, you're seeing stable. Another thing to take into consideration, when students place into 071, there is no bottom threshold. So if a student tests into 071, they could have scored as low as a 0 or 1 on the placement test. They could be illiterate. And they are still in that 071 class. We don't have a lower class than that. But look at those 071 students when they go into 081. Before, in a one semester 071 class, we would only have 16% of those students in fall of 2012 who took 081 and successfully passed that course. Under this format, we had 64% of them. So we're keeping them, we're moving them forward, and we're giving them that advantage to continue to develop their skills. Same thing with the 081, 091. Within 1 year, fall 2012 to 2013, we saw our successful course completion increase to 53%. Again, this is just with our pilots. So the scale up. Because we did the pilots, we started originally back in fall of 2012 doing some linked courses and doing some acceleration. This past fall, approximately 2/3 of our classes that we offered in 071 and 081 were our linked accelerated courses. And in fall of 2014, we were doing all of them, even our evening classes. So all students will have that opportunity to accelerate. And if they aren't able to accelerate, they have that safety net where they can retake the course. Again, I do have all that as handouts, so if you want to see the detail and breakdown of it, you can. What's next for us in reading? We're going to focus on reading 091. At Scottsdale Community College, we were granted the OER Maricopa Millions grant. We have all 5 of our residential faculty who are collaborating. And what we are doing is we are taking 5 academic areas of general education that students will be taking 100-level courses in, and we are going to make OER resources to teach reading skills that are contextualized to those 5 areas. You can see the 5 areas at the bottom there as well. We'll be also accelerating. I mentioned that quick start. It'll be a 1-credit course for the students. They'll take it the first 3 weeks of their fall semester, and then they'll go directly into English 101. They will be taking that with a residential faculty who's certified in both reading and English. And in CRE 101, we're contextualizing that with English 102. We're doing a linked paired system as well, so that those students who like that cohort are being able to have that same experience as they continue on into their 100-level courses. And we are working with hybrid and online for CRE 101 as well. In English, we are also doing a lot of innovations as well. Same format that I described before. Those 071 students that I talked about in reading, they can actually complete English 071 at Scottsdale Community College in 1 semester. It's rare, it doesn't happen to many, but it does happen. In fact, I have a student testimony in just a moment to share with you. This reduces their costs, it reduces their time. In addition to that, they have the 091 Quick Start at the opposite end as well. That's where our reading and our English faculty worked together to develop the reading one based off of the English one. That has been in place since this past fall for sure. I have to look over my department chair to make sure that I'm not saying the wrong date. This past fall, and in the upcoming fall, we'll be offering 3 of those sections. From our orientation and advisors, they've been telling me that that is widely popular with students. I can see why. So English 071, 081. If you look at fall 2010, that's when SCC received a learning grant, and what they did with it is they developed exit exams for English students in developmental education. So all students in developmental education at Scottsdale Community College have to take an exit exam at the end to show proficiency. That's how a large portion of their grade is determined. That's what moves them on to the next level. From that, it allowed them to accelerate students whether or not they placed into 071, 081, or 091. So now a lot of the 071 classes are a mixture of 071 and 081. And students can go through and exempt out of that. Juan here, Metland, he tested into English 071. In 1 semester, he passed out of developmental education. And it was quantified again using those exit exams. In reading, we use Lexile levels and diagnostic tests as well. So it's not just that we're trying to move the students along. We are measuring exactly where they are to make sure that they are ready to move on. And as you can see, from just 4 years, we have increased our successful completion by 25%. In English 091, we have 4 different innovations. different options. We have a lot of 091 English classes. So in this case, it allows us to really offer students a variety of courses that best fit their needs. For example, one of our English 091 classes is linked with CPD 150. Some students have already taken CPD 150 when they go to take English 091. That wouldn't be a perfect fit for everybody. It wouldn't make sense to make all of our classes linked with CPD 150, nor would we have enough counselors to do that. In addition, we have the 8-week acceleration. That's a hybrid, so we have some for technology. The ALP is an accelerated learning program in which the students are taking both English 091 and English 101 at the same time. And the Quick Start is that 1-credit course that I told you about earlier. As you can see, these are our pilots, and they're being compared again with, or I should say, these are the pilots, and what you have there is the successful completion and the completion rates. The completion rates are outstanding. As you can see, in many of these, we have about 100% completion. So if you take a look at the ones that have the 100% completion, note that the 8-week and the Quick Start are all shortened classes. So that does help to promote that student completion. The ALP is a 16-week course, and then the CPD has that counselor component, which we know is so integral as well. As you take a look at the English 091 course data, it's fabulous. If you look at our district and our college success rates in our 100-level courses, they're about 70%. So they're outperforming as far as successful completion. But when you look at English 091 overall for fall 2013, this is where it goes. It makes you just kind of your heart wrench. I had to pull up all these numbers for something else, and I was like, how can our total number be 62%? Look what we're doing. The total number, the overall percentage, is lower because only 40% of our classes are using the innovative format, because we're still in that piloting phase. So what we expect is, although it's increasing and that's promising, we're not seeing that huge jump from what we had seen before. And so as a faculty who's involved in it and a faculty who's extremely passionate about it, you just want that to reflect it. And it doesn't in the overall number, but that is why. The English 101 course completion rate there, that's using a governing board metrics of the first time to college students. And that's the growth from 2010 to 2011, and then 2011 to 2012. You can see again, that's when these innovations have really been happening at SCC. So we really are expecting this to take off even further as we scale up. And this is where we are now. Fall of 2013, you can see 40% were using an innovative format in English. By 2014, we already have our course schedules done. We have 60%. Why we don't have 100% is because a lot of these courses are being taught by residential faculty. And now residential faculty are training and mentoring the adjunct faculty who are interested to teach these classes. Things like the ALP course demand a lot of staffing. They demand an instructor who can teach 3 classes back to back. So that plays with their load hours as well. For an adjunct faculty, that is their one course that they're teaching. So we are working with our adjunct faculty. We are onboarding them for the fall, and we hope to just continue growing that as well, while still offering the traditional formats for students who want that. In English, what's next? They're going to be integrating reading instruction. So as a reading faculty, I'm really excited about that. We actually have hired some English faculty who are trained in both reading and English. So they've already been integrating that. They're going to be working with their colleagues as well. The Quick Start, the 1-credit course, 1 credit of 091, is incorporating OER resources to make that even more cost-effective for the students. Including service learning in ALP, we have an instructor who is already doing that on a wide scale and encouraging other ALP instructors to do that, since they do have those students for 6 credits. They can really do a lot with that. And lastly, including the hybrid and Canvas flipped components of the technology into the classes. This, although I'm up here right now, is not done by just me. There's a ton of people involved in this, and it wouldn't be fair to present on this without giving them due credit, because I've talked with many people who are like, how is this happening? And this is how it's happening. All of these people that you see up there are very involved in making this process work. There were a lot of things that we had, a lot of obstacles we had to overcome, and we were able to do so because of the collaboration and the communication between various departments and divisions within the college. Any questions?
Can you duplicate this then with all those volunteers? I mean, can this be duplicated very easily?
President Starr and Governing Board Lum, it can be duplicated. I believe it can be duplicated, but I believe in a lot of things. So I am more than willing to help others duplicate it. I think one thing to always consider, one thing that we've looked at when we're looking at the research, is that different programs work best for different colleges. For example, the iBest program is one that integrates developmental education with an occupational program. That isn't the best situation for Scottsdale Community College because our programs have a lot of assessments in order to get into those programs already in place. So that may be a better format for a different college.
So with the language, student test, they test in the reading comprehension, that's what you're talking about, right? And then writing and then math, right?
Mm-hmm, that's correct.
With the reading comprehension, is it mainly vocabulary that they're lacking, or what are they lacking, skills are they lacking in?
It depends really on where they place. So for example, a student who places into 071 may have difficulties all the way back to decoding, reading and pronouncing different words. A student who places into 081 tends to have a low vocabulary, but also a low comprehension level. And a student who places into 091 tends to have a higher comprehension, but not an academic comprehension level, and also not an academic vocabulary. So that there's different needs at different levels.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, developmental education is a quarter of our whole outcome grouping of 4. We could go on till midnight talking about the challenges that you have, but this is certainly one of those areas where we're seeing some real progress. In terms of Scottsdale Community College, what do you see as the need in terms of incoming freshman students especially for remediation in any of the 3 different areas of developmental ed, percentage-wise?
Percentage-wise, the need? As far as...
How many test into developmental?
Oh, how many are testing in? We're having close to...
About 68%.
I was going to say 70, so I'm glad he jumped in.
So, just to put it in perspective, 68% of all incoming freshmen into Scottsdale, and it's not that much different in other colleges, require at least 1 class of remediation. And they pay for that credit without it accounting towards any degree or certificate. So it's a real challenge for not only us as a district, but also those students who, for whatever reason, come in without the skills they need to take college-level work. And we see an incredible dropout rate. Yeah, so among the things that our schools are doing is not only coming up with solutions like this to really focus on the needs of those students, but we're also looking at increasing the number of students who continue on and get a degree from us and hopefully beyond that. And that's improving. And we'd like to see it do faster. And I'm just as impatient as you are when it comes to some of these things. But you know, every little bit helps. And I know that other colleges are doing similar innovative things to get to these. We're trying to do some things both with ourselves and with some of the funding sources that our students have to make it more flexible and more valuable to those students and their money and time to get through these. We hope that we eventually get students that are all qualified. We get that 68% to 0, but not in our lifetime probably.
Well, I do have one additional point to add to that that you were mentioning as far as, you know, helping the students to achieve that academic goal that they have. I was meeting with a colleague who actually teaches Spanish courses at SCC, and one of the things that the Developmental Education Committee at SCC is going to be working on is developing academic plans for students who take developmental courses so that when they go on to their 100-level courses, we'll have a map and a plan that will show them certain courses that double for their gen ed requirements. So he was telling me about one of the classes that they offer that covers both the cultural and the humanities. And so making those kind of marketed towards students so that they can do both of those since they've already taken so many electives, and letting them know that up front when they test into developmental education, here are some classes that may shorten your journey as well.
I appreciate what you and your staff are doing, as well as other colleges and their staffs on this really, really important aspect of our role here.
Mr. President, let me ask you a question. Can this be a model duplicated in high school? I mean, this is hopefully they would accomplish it. How come it's not working in high school or as well as it could be?
President Starr and Governing Board Member Lum, Mr. Lum, sorry. In the high schools, they have a host of other issues that they're tackling in addition to that as well. They are going to be reforming some of the ways that they're using instruction. As far as what we do and what we are offering is that service so that when they aren't coming out and are prepared, we can address that. As far as while they're in college or in high school, again, that's going to go back to the complete college and the college readiness agendas that they're working on themselves. I can speculate on my own reasons, but this wouldn't be the place.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for all your work.
Thank you very much. President Starr, may I approach the secretary?
You may.
Passes.
Thank you. We enjoy reading material. Keeps us. Yeah, I was going to say. The next item on the agenda is the citizens interim, and we've got a number of people that have turned in slips. I'm going to take them in the order that they were given to us, and I would, to keep us from being here until midnight, ask each of the speakers to either agree with what has been said previously in the subject that they're talking about, and if they're going to be talking about more than one, to please hold it to about 3 minutes so I don't have to interrupt you. And the first one I'm going to bring up is very familiar with that. Rosie Lopez, you're going to come up and talk about a couple items.
Thank you.
Rosie is representing the Arizona Hispanic Community Forum.
Yes, and I always come here. President Starr and members of the board, this is again regarding the MCCCD security breach. Here I am once again to talk to you about MCCCD security breach and how badly the administration is handling this issue and how it is affecting everyone in our community, students, parents, taxpayers, faculty, and staff. The clock is ticking, and every day this fiasco and lack of transparency is unnecessarily costing us millions of taxpayer dollars. How does this affect the MCCD? Our MCCCD reputation is at stake. It is affecting MCCCD image in Maricopa County, Arizona, and nationally. In the past, MCCCD has always been noted as one of the best community colleges in the nation, and now with the present administration's leadership, our image is tainted and has received some very bad publicity throughout the nation. This board cannot allow this issue to fester. The board has to take action now to stop this administration from costing taxpayers and students millions of dollars more by the refusal to admit that they themselves have created this fiasco, not their IT staff who had warned them of a potential breach. The damage has been done to students, parents, taxpayers, and present and former IT staff members who are experts in IT programs. The administration has created a hostile environment for its employees, and one of the mistrust and angst amongst faculty and staff. We have lost IT expert staff members because of the unfair and unjust treatment of this by this administration, and it's a shame that these present and former valuable IT staff members who warned their superiors and top administrators about possible breaches were made scapegoats because of the administration's inability to act at that crucial time. I'm trying to be faster. They ignored staff and tried to cover up for their incompetent leadership. Some of the IT staff were consequently silenced by the administration by firing some, demoting others, reprimanding, intimidating, humiliating, harassing, and treating them disrespectfully and unfairly. All of this for being responsible employees and just doing their job. Unfortunately, some of our best and brightest IT experts have now resigned because they had too much integrity and could not work in this hostile environment. Lack of capital and operational dollars could leave MCCD very vulnerable to a severe depletion of resources for faculty, staff, and students, and escalate into much bigger financial problems. Less money also means fewer investments in faculty and teaching and learning, and millions of dollars going to lawyers could instead be going to scholarships, school improvement, etc. Scandals such as this one could also jeopardize accreditation for the MCCD. Two of the items in the accreditation process caught my eye, and I quote them. This is in terms of evaluation and all that for the accreditation. Integrity through competence, responsibilities, and ethical practices. That's one of them. The other one is evidence of financial stability. And I have noted there the websites for these. Liabilities and lawsuits could lower bond rates, ratings, and lack of trust from taxpayers. I must admit that for now I personally do not trust this administration and do not support any bond or property tax increases because they are fiscally irresponsible. Lawsuits would cost millions of dollars to defend and settle unless the governing board intervenes and stops Wilson Elser from creating more havoc. Distractions such as this one could cost millions in lack of productivity. The staff, the governing board, the legal department, the chancellor, and many others in the organization are all focused on lawsuits, hearings, and failing IT systems rather than on core business. This administration seems intent on outsourcing. It is driving local talent out and allowing institutional knowledge to leave MCCCD at unprecedented rates and will cost IT systems millions of dollars more. The perfect example is the $18 million to outsource IT that you are being asked to approve today. That is just the beginning, and this is only after last year's approval of nearly $30 million in IT projects which have yet to be started. You are being asked to outsource because the administration has driven everyone out who had expertise and could have helped. Local taxpayer dollars leave the community as a result of our outsourcing and privatization. They go to out-of-state corporate consultants who have no vested interest in our college system.
Ms.
You will be
Lopez,
asked.
you got this written that you're going to give us tonight?
Yes, I am.
Could you move on to the student tuition increase?
To my recommendation?
Well, we'll get that with your written. We'll just, in the presence of time, can you move on to the student tuition increase comments?
Oh, man.
I'm sorry.
Well, how about if Lorena gives me her time? Can I do that?
That's fine.
Okay, Lorena, can you give me your time? Oh, well, thank you very much.
But limit it to a few minutes, please.
Okay, I'll be fast. Okay, where was I? Distractions as this one could cost, oh, I already read that. I'm sorry. Okay, local taxpayer dollars leave the community as a result of outsourcing and privatization. They go to out-of-state corporate consultants who have no vested interest in our college system. You will be asked to pay millions to renew these contracts. The solution to IT problems is not that simple. It's a solution people use when they don't know what they're doing. Systems in the cloud are not any more secure. On the contrary, it is putting all information on the internet. How does this affect the community and the press? The MCCCD public relations has been damaged with the community and the press. The taxpayers will not appreciate paying for this mess, and the press is clearly upset by the administration's lack of transparency and refusal to provide them requested materials relevant to the IT issue. As a result, law firms are filing lawsuits and bringing matters in front of the courts because the district is not cooperating. Do they have something to hide? I don't know. The administration is breaking public record laws and eroding the public's trust. Are the administrators serving students in the community, or are they serving themselves? How does this affect the IT at the district? IT in Maricopa is very weak, having lost 50% of resources nearly all institutional knowledge. You have enough information in your hands to know that people running IT today are on a lengthy learning curve and need training, which takes additional time and money. People with little expertise or experience in large systems are running IT on a part-time basis. The board was asked last year to approve spending millions of dollars on IT, only to be asked this year again to approve millions of dollars more in hiring staff to run those projects. And today are you being asked again to approve the $18 million and spending bond dollars to build systems planned by individuals with limited knowledge, limited staff, and limited experience. And we ask why. The board should ask why. If the MCCD governing board does not take action, then the matter of IT is a much larger security breach could take place, and systems supporting the organization could fail, and IT could fail, making it impossible to register students, disperse financial aid, and get the loan. How does it affect us as homeowners? Taxpayers could see increases in the tax levy that was to be proposed to help with services for students, but now we would be spending for mistakes made by the administration. In my opinion, those proposed tax dollars would be moved around so the district can continue paying for the security fiasco. And personally, I will not vote for a property tax increase. I do not trust this administration. In my opinion, they are fiscally irresponsible. How does this affect employees? Jobs for employees, will it be at risk if the district runs out of dollars and needs to tap into operational dollars to pay bills? Morale is at all-time low. The entire IT department is in worse shape now than it has been. We are more at risk today than we have ever been. People are retiring, resigning left and right, and this is how we run an effective organization. Conclusion, I ask you to take action on behalf of the community, and when the board takes no action, the administration assumes that you support their actions, and the board loses credibility with the public. Remember that the administration has either forced several IT staff to resign or retire, and as a consequence, the MCCD may be facing additional personnel lawsuits, bad publicity, and irreparable harm to the district. I ask you to take the following actions. Stop the one-sided employee hearings until the courts decide how to handle public record requests and now being denied by the district. Seek your own outside independent counsel. Start being transparent with the media and your own employees. Stop spending money on IT and stop wasting bond funds until you hire competent IT staff. Hold those at the top of this organization accountable and don't let them use taxpayer dollars to protect themselves. Stop the administration from ruining the lives of employees and their families and protect and defend the employees and not the administration. Stand strong and speak for those who elected you and the community you represent. Already this administration is attempting to raise student tuition to cover the IT expense. Please do not vote yes on the student tuition. I implore you, because I am really for students and I have always fought for them, and I think it's horrible to raise the tuition. As a matter of fact, I have something here, an article, politicians in Oregon, Tennessee, considering free community college. You ought to consider that. Thank you so much. I made it.
Thank you. Thank you. Next on the list is Sandra Ortega. Sandra, once again, if you could limit it to a few minutes, please.
Yes.
And if you've got something that you want to give to us to put in the record, bring it up here and we'll.
Okay, thank you. President SAR, member of the board and staff, my name is Sandra Ortega. I'm a taxpayer and I'm a teacher. I am here today as a taxpayer and another member of the Hispanic community to ask this board to take action in the matter of the MCCCD security breach. It has been almost a year since the FBI notified MCCCD that the information was compromised, and this board has remained silent in this matter. Millions of dollars have been unnecessary waste in lawyers and consultants to address this issue. Nearly 50% of IT department has resigned or has been forced to retire. The lives of families forever change, and the image of this district tarnished to save an administration that could have avoided this entire incident and is taking no responsibility. However, you cannot sit there and wait for excuses that employees' matter must be first resolved. You cannot sit there and wait for lawyers to handle this matter. While you wait, you are losing trust in the community. While you wait, the image of MCC is being tarnished. While you wait, our system is being bankrupt. While you wait, lawsuits are being filed. While you wait, the students are being asked to pay more tuition. While you wait, homeowners are being asked to pay more taxes. While you wait, the lives of employees are being ruined. While you wait, the administration is forcing people to quit, to resign or retire, to absolve themselves of any guilt. Today, there are two individuals from ITT in the termination list who settled with the district and resigned. One of them is being terminated effective July 1st. Another individual has also been forced to resign. Over the last several months, many more have left the IT organization in an unprecedented rate. Do you see a problem here? Who will be held accountable when the truth finally comes out? You are in charge, you create policy, and you can change it if it does not fit the organization. You hire the chancellor and legal counsel. You can fire the chancellor and legal counsel if they are no longer serving the organization and the community you represent.
Take another minute, please.
You have enough information in your hands to clearly see what's taking place. Take the time to read the many documents that have been sent to you. Take the time to view the news articles printed in the newspaper and online newsletters. The taxpayers are watching the TV reports and reading the articles. You will have to answer to them at election time. Be transparent. take action. Don't wait until it's too late. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next up is Stephen Montoya. Mr. Montoya, same thing, if you've got something that you would like to have into the record.
Yes, President. I'm here as a concerned citizen. I've been advocating the rights of educators for at least 2 decades in this community, and I'm here to alert the board to what I believe is a severe dilution of the board's authority, the board's exclusive authority to terminate its employees. As the board is aware, only the board, pursuant to the RFP, can terminate an employee. What is happening, perhaps in some ways unbeknownst to the board, the administration, after it commences termination proceedings, unsuccessfully is unilaterally transforming the termination proceeding into a suspension. And the suspension is a de facto termination because the suspension is of such a length that from an economic perspective, it is the de facto substantive equivalent of a termination. And that is in violation of the RFPs, that dilutes this board's authority to discipline and terminate its employees, and it needs to be stopped. So I urge the board to consider matters that are before the board and to ask your counsel and to ask your administration if it in fact is transforming termination proceedings into unilateral suspensions that are not subject to this board's review, that in fact subvert and undermine and severely dilute this board's authority to manage its employees through the termination proceeding set forth by the RFP. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Montoya,
Yes,
are you an attorney?
I am an attorney, yes, but I'm here as a citizen, not as an attorney.
What is your specific law specialty?
I would say it is federal civil rights litigation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Dr. Martinez is next. Same thing, Dr. Martinez. Let's take 3 minutes. And if you have something that you'd like to put in the record, bring it up here after you're
I
done.
will. Thank you. President Saar, members of the board, Dr. Glasper, members of the CEC, and distinguished guests. My name is Dr. Cleopatria Martinez. I'm a mathematics instructor at Phoenix College. I have been employed as a mathematics professor by the Maricopa Community College District for 29 years. I have always loved my job as a teacher. During my 3 decades of hard work for the district, I have never been disciplined and have never otherwise been in any trouble. As you are aware, the president of Phoenix College recently attempted to terminate me, but a hearing committee unanimously rejected the recommended termination. Although the chancellor ultimately accepted the hearing committee's recommendation not to terminate me, the chancellor is now attempting to suspend me for 14.5 months. I want to keep my job, and for that reason I have followed orders from the administration which have grossly violated my academic freedom and have affected my ability to perform my job. Writing course materials for students is one of the duties of MCCCD faculty, and because these materials are faculty generated, Phoenix College is obligated to absorb the cost to make copies for students. In spring 2013, my colleagues I selected my colleague's unpublished material in lieu of a published textbook. The material had been approved by the mathematics department for this purpose, and it had been used for several semesters. The PC administration refused to make copies of this unpublished material, and I was told to have the students make their own copies at their own expense. The administration proceeded to dismiss me. I appealed the dismissal, presented my case to an appeals committee. This faculty hearing committee found that PC had failed to carry its burden of proof. They found no violation of the cash handling policy, but the chancellor still has suspended me for 14.5 months because I would not pay for the students' course materials. No faculty is responsible for purchasing instructional materials for students, and I believe I should not have to either. It is for this one-time effort on my part to help students that I am being suspended without pay for an unacceptably long length of time, and I have not broken any policies. Like most working people, I cannot economically survive a 14-month suspension of pay. The chancellor's suspension may also cause me to lose my health insurance because I may not be able to afford to pay my contribution toward continued health coverage. Under the circumstances, the chancellor's 14-month suspension of me is the functional equivalent of termination from the district. As you are aware, under the RFP, only this board has the authority to terminate an employee. While I was never found guilty of violating MCCD regulations or policy, I am unfairly being punished. I am not guilty of violating any MCCD policy or regulation, including cash handling. I was not afforded due process. Accordingly, I ask the board to intervene in my case to rescind the chancellor's suspension, and at the very minimum, allow me to present proof of what I have stated here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Lucas Bodine and a number of other fine Mesa students. Mr. Morgan, you can go first.
I am not Lucas Bodine. My name is Spencer Morgan. I'm the previous president of the Associated Students of Mesa Community College. I served as president from 2009 to 2010. And previous to that, as vice president from 2008 to 2009. During my 2 years on the executive board, we vehemently opposed the raising of tuition. And successfully, through discussions with the board and with the CDC, were able to keep tuition steady for those 4 years. I stand today continuing my vehement opposition to tuition increases. At the time, we opposed them because they imposed an undue burden to students, and we were going through tough economic times. I continue that stance because our students need the break. But in addition to that, with declining enrollment, raising tuition seems like a poor economic move. Anytime that you increase prices while you're experiencing a decrease in demand is only going to decrease your demand at an accelerated rate. So I'll turn the time over to my fellow presenters.
Hello, my name is Ryan O'Reilly. I was the president from 2010 to 2011, I think. That year we came to the governing board in support of a tuition increase with an understanding that tuition would not be raised for another 5 years. And that was part of the discussion during that tuition increase. Unfortunately, Andrew Kuhn, the president last year, 2012 to 2013, could not be here today. We stood up together last year to oppose but understand the need for a tuition increase, and the students understood the need for a tuition increase, but to adamantly oppose the constant reliance on tuition increases to increase revenue for the school, and hope that the governing board would then pursue other options. We three, Andrew, Spencer, and I, are here to support Lucas today as former ASMCC presidents, and hope that you would seriously consider what he has to say. Thank you.
Due to time, I will summarize some of my remarks, and I've attached it so that you could read that for future reference. With discussion of this proposal, it is important to note the kind of backgrounds of our students. Approximately 57% of students work for pay anywhere from 21 to 30 plus hours a week. 69% of our students are declared part-time students, and 39% of the students receive Pell Grants. This proposal will directly impact those students working many hours a week to provide for their families and themselves. This is a large majority of our students at our campus and within our district, those trying to afford an education while providing for themselves and their families. We'd invite the board to ask themselves what percentage of funds are being allotted to each college as well as the district level, and ask if these allotted funds help cultivate teaching and learning within the classroom. We caution the board to avoid a history of tuition increases. Each time tuition is increased means that the availability and access to getting an education is limited. We believe that the community colleges should make affordability a key staple so that as many people as possible may be able to receive a privilege of a collegiate education. Much change has taken place within the district, and once completed, the initiatives will be a benefit to students. However, with these initiatives, we must keep in mind the affordability to the student. We suppose that there are relevant and important needs to a proposed tuition increase, but the tuition increase will not be a long-term fix to the district's financial situation. The current student body at Mesa Community College is not in favor of the proposed tuition increase. In response to this proposal, we encourage more dialogue and creativity to alternative sources of funding and processes. We'd encourage the district to discuss a flat rate tuition and various payment plans and options. Thank you for consideration and your time to listening to our concerns.
Thanks to all of you. Next is Dr. Charles Townsell. Dr. Townsell, same thing. If you could hold it to 3 minutes or so, please.
Yes, sir. I have this document here that says I'm supposed to recognize the president and members of the board and the chancellor and the CEC, I guess. I'm here tonight. I really came here to talk about something else. But when I heard that first presentation, I was taken aback, because it seems to me that rather than to criticize someone, a person in a leadership role, we ought to be working together to improve the district. I served as superintendent of schools for 12 years, served under a board of education, and I discovered that I couldn't do anything as superintendent unless I had board approval. And that board approval came about as a result of working together with the board, keeping the board abreast of what was going on. Now, I came here tonight to talk about something else. I was at home one night and I was looking at this meeting, and I looked around this table up front and I didn't see one black president. And I still don't see one black president. And I'm concerned that if we talk about people being involved and engaged, we need to make certain that we have representation on this, in these colleges from African Americans. And also, when I look up at that board, I don't see any black people. Today I read someplace in the paper that they had appointed Norma Munoz to a position in the House of Representatives. I've been in this community for 31 years, and I've been fighting for the inclusion of African Americans in leadership roles. It still baffles me that we've never had a black serving on the Board of Supervisors since I've been here. Never had a black serving on the governing board for the college, for the senior colleges. Arizona State, Northern Arizona, and the university down there in Tucson never had any black people. And I think it is incumbent upon you board members and all of you people who is sitting in here to see what I see and do something about it. Do something about it. Now, as I said, when I saw there were no black presidents here, I called or sent an email to the chancellor and all the board members. Two of the board members reached out to me. Mr. Lom and Mr. Burke reached out to me, and we talked. And we talked about how we could work together. Now, somebody else was up here and said something about they were here some time ago. I was here about 15 years ago talking with Chancellor Elsner. And I was at that time president of the Education Committee of the NAACP. And I met with every president in the district at that time, talked with them about the lack of black presence on their campuses. Chancellor Chancellor Glasper, I'm sorry. Chancellor Glasper, I'm happy to know that you hired, is it Mrs. Johnson?
Shelton Johnson.
Yeah, and the board has approved it. I'm happy to know that. And I would like to come again when I won't have to get up and say, where are black folk? The last thing I want to say, Mr. Sarr, is the fact that these people who talked about teaching and learning, that's outstanding. I love teaching, as a painter likes to paint. The only thing about it, we don't pay them enough. We need to pay them like we pay folk who work for the community college, and like we pay for folk who work at the universities. In my estimation, I've worked everywhere. I was a full professor at a university. I didn't deserve the money that they paid me in lieu of the money that they paid a kindergarten teacher, because that kindergarten teacher got me started. And we have it wrong. We ought to change it up. We ought to turn it upside down. Pay elementary school teachers more than we pay college professors. Now, I could preach a little longer, but since you told me not to, I'll come back another time. I got out of my sick bed to come here. After I met with Mr. Burke and Mr. Lum, I've been in the hospital twice. Had a heart attack. I didn't feel like coming out here tonight. But I said I'm going, because they want to see me after meeting with me, after wasting their time meeting with me. So we're going to meet again. And we want to make certain that we work together, that we're not anti-anybody. We all are in this together. And let me tell you why we are in it together, because we never know how long we're going to be here. I don't see one president that I talked with 15 years ago sitting at this table now. And the only name I remember is a guy by the name of Decabuta. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. We move on to the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Under the consent agenda, there are a couple items that are going to be taken off for tonight. It'll be Roman numeral 4B5 and 4C6 are off of the agenda for tonight. Do I hear a motion to accept the agenda, or is there anybody that would like to take anything else off the agenda?
I move we accept the consent agenda without 4B5 and 4B6?
Thank you.
C6.
4C6.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept the consent agenda as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Now we go to the non-consent agenda items. Consideration of business services, approval of purchase order for job order construction to remodel business education and language arts restrooms at South Mountain College. Mrs. Thompson.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is a bond program project, and it is to remodel 30-year-old facilities that need some substantial upgrades, and we recommend its approval.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the board?
Move approval.
Is there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded. I might say that we've had discussion on this at our meeting previous in the month where we go through the entire agenda and have the opportunity to ask questions of staff, and they have time to get us back with some answers. So, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Next is the approval of authorization for required changes to the student information system and hosting services. Dr. Glasper.
Mr. Sarr, members of the board, I have a recommendation on this authorization. I would like to ask Ed Kelty to come to the podium to read the recommendation to the board.
Mr. President, members of the board, CEC, and guests, I'm asking for a recommendation to move forward with the upgrade and hosting of our SIS student information system with Oracle Corporation. This contract is a 3-year contract with 2 additional renewals to go out 5 years for hosting.
Questions from members of the board for Mr. Kelty? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the authorization for required changes to the SIS system and hosting services. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Kelty. Next on the agenda is the approval for an ERP Global Design and Planning Project. Dr. Glasper.
Mr. Sarr, members of the board, I would also like to ask Mr. Kelty to introduce this item for recommendation as well.
Thank you. Mr. President, members of the board, this is a planning engagement to help us plan for the other major system upgrades that we're looking at over the next several years. Our human resource system, our financial system, our budget system all need to be upgraded or replaced in the next 24 months or so. This planning engagement will help us streamline our processes and make sure we synchronize all the different aspects of our major systems so that when they're upgraded together in the planning that we're doing right now, they'll be more efficient and work better together. We had some issues with that in the past because they were all upgraded at different times, and it made it a little more difficult for integration.
Questions for Mr. Kelty? I have a quick one. And this is a consultant agreement. Is there a length of time that you're looking at this to be covered for?
We expect this to take about 3 months to do.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
3 months for the consultant to be hired.
No, 3 months after this is approved, shortly after this is approved and the contracts go through our procurement department, they'll be on site working with us for 3 months.
Right.
I would expect them to start in about a month.
Okay, but the contract, or the outside consultants will be contracted for 3 months.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Kelty? Not, do I hear a motion?
Move approval.
Or a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the ERP Global Design and Planning Project. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelty. Next item is the approval of extension of contract with Wilson, Elsner, Moskowitz, Edelman, and Dicker. Dr. Glasper.
Mr. Sarr, members of the board, I would like to ask for a motion to amend this particular item, and I believe Mr. Burke will read that recommendation.
Mr. President, I move an amendment for 5B3. It is recommended that the governing board authorize the chancellor to extend the contract for legal services with Wilson, Elzer, Moskowitz, Edelman, and Dicker LLP through December 31, 2014, subject to the requirement that the chancellor retain a firm with Phoenix-based staff to serve during that period as co-counsel, including but not limited to services in connection to any public records matters and litigation related to data security. All services are to be provided within the $2.7 million budgeted expenditures for attorney services previously approved. Both firms are to provide services as directed by the chancellor in consultation with the general counsel.
Thank you. That's an amendment to the motion. Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
It's been seconded on the amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Are we not having any discussion?
We can write on the amendment?
Please.
Yes. Go ahead.
Who's the general counsel when we say in consultant with the general counsel? Who are we referring to?
Our general counsel is Mr. Lee Combs.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
members of the board, Dr. Glasper, I do not have a good feeling about this. I understand the threats to this district and the way that we have been groomed to feel obligated to have this service. But I want to express a complete and total lack of confidence. I do not feel that this is the direction to go. I feel this $7 million that we have allocated for non-legal services is $2.7 million to legal fees. I just can't continue doing this. I can't. This organization, I have serious concerns and lack of confidence that I wish to express. When I'm told or I hear comments about, and I have to be really careful because I understand a lot of this is an executive session. I'm disgusted. I'm thoroughly disgusted. And I'm frustrated because I can't say why I'm thoroughly disgusted. This, I just don't feel like that this is going the direction that it should be going. And I don't think that this is money well spent. And I feel that the legal advice that we've been receiving and the games that have been played and the comments that have been made to us as a board are inappropriate. And while I understand the threats of lawsuits and to the public's security of information and all of these things, we've been for months, and I remember Mr. Lum asking the question about the amount of money we just keep approving. And I say tonight we have to stop and we have to start setting back and saying, yes, we need the chancellor to take responsibility. We don't need an organization that says the chancellor's doing exactly as we're instructing him to do. We needed the chancellor to, yes, get a public, an organization within the state to look at these matters in this situation, to do what needs to be done as this amendment states. But having it tied and tying that to the Wilson, Elzer, and this whole entire, no. I want to amend this amendment to recommend that we authorize the chancellor to extend the contract, or not to extend the contract, but to proceed to connect with a firm Phoenix-based firm on these matters of protecting our public records and the litigation and the data security. I'm tired of being talked down to. I'm tired of being treated the way that we've been treated, and I will not vote to authorize this contract to be continued.
Mr.
Motion's
Chairman,
been made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded. Discussion on the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, the amendment to the motion authorizes the retaining of a Phoenix-based firm. And they will be addressing an issue that is facing the board. And the motion does not require additional funds. This is simply a continuation of what we've already approved, and we are involving a local firm to help us in the matters, legal matters facing us.
Mr. Chair, is to extend the contract for legal services with Wilson, Elser, whatever and whatever, and whatever. The bottom line is, yes, I agree that we need to do part of this, but to tie it to the extension of the contract for legal services not only irritates me, it's beyond that.
Mr. Chairman, what we're doing is simply extending the time already and the budget already approved. It is not an increase in budget. It's simply extending the time that they will be working on the legal matters.
Mr. Chairman, we're here to vote tonight whether or not we wanted to extend that contract. Then it was amended to add this other council with Phoenix-based because it was already known that there was a desire to not extend the contract to this Wilson, Elser, whatever, and to go that direction. Now, we're tying it to the extension of the contract for legal services with this organization, and my expression is a total lack of confidence in this organization to continue. I do not want to extend this contract for legal services.
Thank you. Any further comments on the amendment to the amendment? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Now we're voting on Ms. Pearson's amendment to the original amendment.
Mr. Chairman, can you tell us precisely what that amendment to the amendment is?
Can you help me out?
The amendment to the amendment would be to extend the contract for legal services with Wilson and Company. And that it would then pick up with the requirement of that the chancellor retain a firm with Phoenix-based staff to serve during that period and remove co-counsel, including but not limited to services in connection to any public records matters and litigation related to data security, and all services are to be provided within the budgeted expenditure for attorney services previously approved, removing Wilson and Elser and party, and removing then the word both firms to then state the Phoenix-based firm to provide services as directed by the chancellor in consultation with, and again, concerns expressing.
Before clarification, is this amendment a motion to discontinue the contract with Wilson, Elser, and so forth?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. President, may I comment?
Just let me make sure that we have something in the amendment. Do you have that, Tina? Okay, thank you. Yes.
Just want to comment that Wilson Elser has projects underway that are not completed, that need to be completed, that really only Wilson Elser can complete as a practical matter without duplicating the costs already invested in their services. So whether we ultimately transition to another law firm or not, we will need to be able to continue to pay Wilson Elser for those necessary services. This resolution authorizes us to accomplish that, and we will, I understand what the board's saying, but it would be extremely inadvisable and wasteful to simply terminate the Wilson-Elser contract at this point.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
That is just ridiculous. And again, the idea that a Phoenix-based organization is not capable of doing these things or continuing these things, and we already know how much has already been approximately spent, and to me, this whole entire process of basically doing this to us as a board, just gobbling us into and having things in process is just not acceptable. Bottom line is, we need to get a Phoenix-based organization or firm to pick this up and to do what needs to be done. And I have total confidence that we have someone right here in Phoenix that can handle it, that will not be condescending and talking down to us and doing the things that are going on that I feel are inappropriate, out of order, and I don't know how many times I've called point of order with this whole entire situation, and I'm tired of it. I want to move forward with doing what needs to be done for this district without bankrupting it, and I would appreciate your support.
Call for the question.
Mr. Chairman, before the question is called?
It's already called.
Well, want to call on a question?
Rescind your
No,
point.
he can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'm the most recent board member, and I arrived here after the breach and after decisions were made by this board, including the decisions that we're now being asked to rescind. I perhaps have not served long enough to share your frustration, but I have served long enough to realize that the board is facing and the district is facing potentially multi-million-dollar liability. Potentially, the numbers could go into figures that would greatly damage the capacity of this district to provide and maintain its academic mission. Potentially figures so great that the 2% allowed of property tax, for example, would be insufficient, and we would be, in fact, beginning to close colleges or at least cut way beyond the fat in the system, to use a trite phrase, and go to the bone. Now, I have not evaluated this firm. I read about them on the internet. And as I said before, I don't share your experience. But I do know this, that to sit here and simply cut a contract without knowing its consequences, it would seem to me is irresponsible. If it is the desire of the majority of this board to reevaluate a decision that this board, with the exception of myself, made, then let's do that, let's evaluate it, and make a decision of whether or not to proceed. But I don't know the consequences of this decision. I literally do not know the consequences of this decision. And I think it's an irresponsible decision. Now, it may well be that Mr. Pearson is absolutely correct, that these people are condescending and talk down to us, et cetera, et cetera. I haven't experienced that, but again, I haven't been on this board throughout the decision-making process that the rest of you did. And so if at this point you regret your decisions, then let us do so, consider ending this process in a transition that we know the consequences. We know what's going to happen. We know what projects our attorney is talking about that are in place. Now, some of these we know. And as Ms. Pearson said, we're not able to share because they occurred in executive session. But presumably there are others. And so we're going to make a decision to potentially increase the liability against this district, then I think we have to do so responsibly. I find this action before us irresponsible. I think we ought to vote it down. I think we ought to vote the original motion forward, 2, and 3, if it is the desire of the majority of this board to reevaluate this contract, Mr. President, that we then take that action up. If it is allowable, I don't believe it is, but if it is allowable under the current agenda, that an amendment can be made and the process begun. If not, at our next planning meeting, that item could be added and the procedure launched. But I think it's irresponsible to proceed in this fashion. I don't know the consequences. I don't know that any of you know the consequences of this action.
Mr. Chairman. I feel that to make those kinds of statements is to say that all law firms within the Phoenix area are incompetent of handling the situation, and I find that just totally unacceptable. And if we don't feel that we can find or have confidence that there is a competent firm in the Phoenix area to be able to handle these matters, I would like to table this until we can see if we can find a competent firm in the Phoenix area that can handle the matters that are before us.
Mr. President?
We have a motion?
Mr. Yes, President? Call for the question.
Mr. President? Well, before that, are you making a motion that we table this amendment to the amendment?
Mr. President, I'm suggesting we table this whole entire subject, this whole entire VB3, until a later time when we can do so with an educated board and an understanding of the competence of the people within firms within the Phoenix area.
There's no discussion.
All those in favor?
Mr. President,
there's no discussion on the table amendment.
No discussion on a motion.
A discussion to an amendment to the third degree under Robert's Rules of Orders, which I believe we proceed under.
I agree.
Is inadmissible. This would be a motion in the third degree. Now, if you want to accomplish what Mrs. Pearson is talking about, there is a parliamentary way of doing that.
I rescinded
mine. A motion to the third degree is not the way to do that.
I said I would rescind mine.
So we are going to vote on the amendment to the amendment as stated earlier. All those in favor say aye.
What am I voting for?
We're voting for
Mrs. Pearson's proposal to terminate the Wilson-Elser contract. That's essentially it.
Yes, with the...
To table it or
to terminate it.
To terminate.
And to replace it with somebody local. And that's a summary of what the
Can I
motion...
comment on that?
I know it's been called for the question. So all in favor...
We have to vote on the question.
No, you don't have to call it,
Yeah, you
vote
do.
on the question.
If you vote, you call for a question, you have to vote
So
on it. That's
are
why I
you-
don't recommend people vote calling the question. We should stop and debate. You have to vote to stop debate.
I will let you comment on the amendment to the amendment.
Thank you. My concern is I don't want a law firm telling us how to run IT, telling us how to run HR. I think they're overstepping their bounds. How we can stop that, any way we can do that, that's what I want to do. I think it's inappropriate for out-of-state lawyers to come in here and say, oh, you need to structure your IT department this way, and telling them how to marching orders and giving them IT advice. Only, we ask them for security advice only, and I think when they start redirecting and reshaping our IT, I think that's out of order. And that's my
Mr.
concern.
Lum, I think you're getting into attorney-client privilege communications.
Okay, and
executive session discussions.
writing letters and telling us who to fire and how to fire them, I think that's inappropriate, and that's why I'm against this.
We have an amendment to the motion. All those in favor of the amendment to the amended motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
I vote nay. That amendment is defeated. We're back to the original amendment to the original motion.
Mr. Chairman, then I make a motion that we table this whole entire VB3 until we can educate
The proponent has to accept that motion under Robert's rules.
Yes.
I understand that.
If the proponent does not, of the amended motion, does not accept the motion to table, then you must vote on the motion.
I understand that.
Yes. I do not accept. I want to vote on the motion.
Any further discussion on the amendment to replace the original motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the written amendment in front of us, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay.
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 I vote aye. The amendment to the motion passes. Next on the agenda is to review the preliminary proposed fiscal year 14-15 budget. Ms. Thompson.
Mr. President, members of the board, last month we brought to the board information on the proposal on tuition and fees that the administration was putting forward, and shared with you some additional information on other resources that would be potentially available in the general fund, as well as projected uses of all of those resources. Tonight we're sharing information again on those proposals, but also sharing some information on the total preliminary proposed budget for fiscal 14-15. In terms of our schedule, we'll return in April and seek approval on tuition and fees, and also preliminary adoption of the proposed budget, which is a kind of formality just to set an upper limit on the size of the budget. In May, we'll have a public hearing and ask the vote to set a final adopted budget in place. And at this time, I'd like to ask A. Murphy, Associate Vice Chancellor for Business Services, to share some details with you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Sarr, Ms. Thompson, Mr. Sarr, I had requested to make some comments prior to.
Wasn't sure if this was the one, but go ahead, yes.
Gay, could you take a seat for a few minutes, please? Thank you. I have been asked to make some general comments earlier. However, I chose not to take that particular topic, in which was a general update from the Chancellor. But since we're talking about the budget here, I just would like to make some general statements. And I would like to title these comments, Higher Education, Who Pays, Who Benefits, and Who Should Pay. In 1973, the Carnegie Commission did a policy report which, in essence, requested that the three legs of our stool, state funding, local taxes, and tuition, represent about 1/3 of the equal cost to education. The state of Arizona in approximately 1988 or 89 had started moving towards that direction, and with the Maricopa community colleges, they never funded any more than about 26% share of funding. As we move forward today, and I appreciate the comments from the students at Mesa, in 1980 we had zero tuition, and we know where we stand today. We have about 1% or less than 1% funding from the state. We're up to about 29% funding from our students, and we're still asking the question. And that in question again is of who benefits from what, who pays for what, and who should pay for higher education. We're looking at a question right now, and we have had an impact on our budgets over the last few years that have saw our state resources decline because the state was in dire need. We went from about $69 million to a little less than $6 million at this point in time. Such a reduction would force us to examine the fundamental question posed at the outset. But it's not only a question of who will pay, but what are we paying for? And that question has been asked by our board. And what is our value proposition that we're looking for? We created a culture in the last 6 years that asked us to be more effective and more efficient. We reduced our budgets in excess of about $47 million. And we're still looking to be more effective and more efficient. We have to be able to adapt to the change in this environment. But I will ask us as we move forward, are we eventually moving to a point where a public good is moving closer to a private good? And the last time I spoke to the board was to talk to you about the need for us to move a privatization model into our system, because long-term stability, given the elasticity of demand in both tuition and fees, is not something that we would look at in terms of coming to our students or to our taxpayers. But we need to figure out how we will fund our system moving forward. Historically, state funding had one major component, and it still does today, and that is how many full-time students are enrolled at 45th day of our semester. This model provides incentives primarily only to enroll, to provide access, but it does not necessarily incentivize institutions to help students successfully complete degree programs. What we have tried to instill in the last few years is a transition of this model to one on performance-based funding, of which we presented to the state in October of last year, and to begin to move towards a model that would incentivize the completion at the classroom level and to also maintain quality. Arizona and Maricopa are continuing to reconsider how we can balance the state needs with that of the local needs and also with metrics that matter. We're looking at a design that would put enough funding at stake to create an incentive for students to improve results and then decide how that money should be allocated within our system. We proposed, as a community college system, the Arizona Visioning document, which has in excess of 32 metrics. And for community colleges, those are metrics that are appropriate to our institutional sector and not as compared to the university. I mentioned before that we are looking at developmental education, and we've had some presentations tonight. We're looking at certificates, the advancement through certificates and AJEC requirements and transfer and graduate students moving in order to provide new metrics. The state is looking at within a year, they will implement a portion of that performance-based funding and will allow us to be moving towards a process of funding that is based upon outcomes and not just numbers in the seats. I argue that we must maintain our focus on the goal of improving college completion while rewarding both progress and success. That we must also align our outcomes with workforce needs. That we must preserve our academic quality by incorporating student learning measurements into performance funding. The statistics that was given earlier by Dr. Kaur in terms of Scottsdale is the average of many community colleges. But think about the profile of our students. On average, 3 out of 5 students test into 1 or more developmental ed courses. We have recommended a seamless student experience as one of our major initiatives to move forward in addressing this concern. We looked at the data that was presented on the board today, and it demonstrated to us that in pockets around our district, and I appreciate the presentation because it delineated that not all colleges are the same. What can happen in a college of 16 to 20,000 students may not be the same in 26,000 students or even 71,000 students. But we're learning from best practices among our peers. We have a student success initiative that will move us into a position of district-wide branding and beginning and acting like one system. And we are also advancing on a Maricopa priorities, which will be asking the basic question: all else equal, should we be doing business the way we did some 50 years ago or even 5 years ago? Researchers at Teachers College in Columbia found that institution size is negatively correlated with successful student outcomes. Students complete at higher rates in smaller community colleges. When we talk about measurements of success in this district, and we've had multiple presentations around developmental education and models that work well at Mesa, that work well at Scottsdale, that work well at Estrella. But what we're looking for is a solution that's scalable to 225,000 credit students. So the question is, can we find that elusive, scalable model? We shouldn't stop trying, but we should continue to share best practices. Teachers College also found that having more full-time faculty on staff leads to improved outcomes for students. Yet today, as a way of saving money, as we did through the recession, we flipped that model. and we went to 25% load taught by part-time faculty, 25% load taught by full-time faculty to 75% taught by part-time. Community colleges are more likely to rely on these adjunct faculties, and we brought to the board a transition to move towards 60-40 because it will help us with our retention, it will help us with our completion, and it will help us with our support of our students. Investing in more full-time community college faculty will result in better outcomes. A 2008 review of studies in 9 states found that the cost of educating economically disadvantaged students range from just under 23% to 168% more than the cost of educating other students. When you look at the numbers that we presented when we went to DC of the number of students in our district that are on Pell Grants, we know that our students are in need, and they are first generation, they are students who are disadvantaged and need an opportunity to have resources. Last year, we provided over $16 million in both merit and need-based financial aid for our students, and we are asking for dollars to add even more this year. Over the past decade, inflation-adjusted spending at public research universities increased $4,200 per student, because we're compared with the universities when we talk about increase in tuition. But if you look at community colleges, it was just $1 per student for community colleges. The rate of instructional expenditures and student service expenditures have some positive impacts on graduation rates, and cuts in institutional expenditures and student services will lower college performance and will also thwart our retention and completion efforts. I also draw your attention to the fact that we are looking at IT as being job number one. So regardless of whatever decision you make, there will be a recommendation from me that funds IT so that we are in a position to build an infrastructure so that we can add new programmatic enhancements to it that will meet the needs of our students. And I also would like to draw your attention to the fact that more recently, the Aspen Institute named 150 U.S. community colleges recognized for excellence, chosen from over 1,200 institutions. 3 years ago, we had 1 college. 2 years ago, we had 3 colleges. Today, we have 6 colleges. The recognition is for exceptional student outcomes in 4 areas: student learning, certificate and degree completion, employment and earnings, high levels of access and success for minority and low-income students. The assessment is institutional performance, improvement and equity on student retention and completion measures. So I argue with you, when you look at our data and we make the statement that we've only made minor increases in a 10-year period, we have 60% of our students that are different from one year to the next. We are working with a population that is changing. We are trying to put in a new student success model in a system that educates in excess of 225,000 credit students. To not recognize that as a material change and an advancement in the way that we have done business and that we are planning to do business is an insult to all of us, as we have proposed to our board and to our community that these 10 colleges want to work together, will work together, and will make whatever reductions are necessary to achieve student success as number one. So whatever happens with this presentation, we have already been working with our colleges because we hear the sentiment of our board, but there is a cost of education. Someone will bear the cost. We talked about getting rid of every president or the chancellor at the last board meeting. You can do that, but you will still not make the adjustment that you need. So we are proposing, as we look at our colleges now, we have asked for an initial list of potential areas that we could use for reduction. But I would not be proposing that we make immediate reductions in this system, because we survived and thrived through the recession by cutting 40-something odd million dollars, but we did it in an orderly manner. And as we move forward, we will do that in an orderly manner. We will bridge, we will make the appropriate steps that we need necessary, but in the long run, If we want to move from 6 colleges to 10 colleges, if we want to move this needle, it is an investment that may come from Maricopa Priorities. And Maricopa Priorities was not designed to be a budget-cutting initiative. It was designed for us to have everyone in this institution come to the table and say, let's become more effective, more efficient, and find resources to reallocate. Finally, in DevEd, we have talked about the fact that we spend in excess of $90 million easily in any given year. If we are able to implement any of these strategies, to take them from an embryo stage, from a pilot stage to a scalable stage, even if the Scottsdale model only impacts 2 colleges, 3 colleges, or 5, and not all 10, then we need to be able to make that step. We need to be able to support our students, because if we can save 5%, 10% of $90 million, then we can reallocate dollars. But we need support in order to do that. We can't continue to cut and expect to see advancements. Now, whatever decision you make, we will give you whatever data is necessary, and whatever decision is finally made, we will walk into our offices, make the appropriate adjustments, and then we will right-size the institution to match the resources that we have. We have committed employees, we have committed staff. I applaud our staff for staying with us for 6 years. They have been excellent during the recession, and I ask them to commit to staying with us moving forward, and we will bring you excellence in other areas as we move forward in this district and in years to come. Thank you for this time. Gay, the presentation is yours.
Thank you very much. President Saar, Governing Board members, Chancellor Glasper, CEC members, and honored guests. Tonight we are presenting the budget to you as an information item. This is the point in our budget schedule that we've arrived after a very long process. So again, we're at the point of providing you the preliminary budget for fiscal year 14-15 for your information so that you can review the proposed spending. In April, at the board meeting, we will ask you to set tuition rates as well as approve a budget that we can continue to move forward. The preliminary budget assumes a $5 increase in the resident tuition rate and a 2% increase in the property tax levy. An increase in the property tax levy requires us to follow the statutory truth in taxation process that includes public notice and a public hearing. So in addition, every year we also hold for our major taxpayers a meeting so that they're aware of our operating plans. So if finally, at the May 27th Governing Board meeting, we will present you a final budget for adoption. So with our fiscal year 2015 budget, we're providing a total increase of $36.2 million, which is about 2.17% growth. Our general operating fund increase is actually a net number, some pluses, some minuses. But it is it includes both the new revenue from the tax and the tuition, but also most of it is one-time fund balance. The fund balance is the district's emergency reserves that have built up over a number of years. With our general operating fund, we're looking at an additional $25.8 million. We support our general operating fund from 3 primary operating revenue sources. These at one time, as Chancellor Glasper was talking, were the 3 legs of the stool funding for a community college. At this time, we're looking at tuition proposal of $5, property tax increase of 2% in the levy, and because of prior enrollment declines over the past couple of years, We're looking at a small decrease in state aid. Also, due to some recent activity in the Senate, we've picked up potentially an additional $1.4 million for STEM funding. That's science, technology, engineering, and math. It's in the Senate Appropriations Bill, and if it holds through that process, we would need to dedicate those additional resources to STEM programs. We wouldn't be able to use them for general operating funds. If you've had time to start reviewing the proposed budget, you might note some expenditure reductions. We support student enrollments a lot by allocating a large portion of the tuition that students pay directly to the college that provides that service. So we saw a huge spike in enrollment and tuition at the height of the recession, and then we've seen kind of a trickle off over the past few years. Enrollment trends may differ from college to college, and a number of colleges really have spent the last year, some of them 2 years, on plans that will reduce their expenditures to fit their projected enrollments. The proposed tax and tuition increases will support specific mandatory and discretionary needs, and I have a list of those later in the presentation. The decrease in our auxiliary fund is more of an adjustment really to the $50 million increase we saw last year. We're still planning for $153 million in auxiliary services and activities. This is the area where potentially we'll see the largest amount of growth from resources generated from our new Maricopa Corporate College once they're fully up and running and operational and providing workforce training. We're also looking at no change in the restricted fund. We had a pretty significant increase last year, and we think we'll see an increase in the dollar value of Pell Grants, but we're also looking at a decline in number of non-resident students, so we think that'll kind of be a wash. But we do project $319 million in expenditures. Of that will be $225 million in financial aid support for our students. In terms of our capital budget, the reductions in our plant funds should continue to decline steadily until such time as a decision is made about asking voters to consider another GO bond program. We've added 1.7 million square feet of new buildings through purchase or construction, with about 62,000 planned to go. We've remodeled 905,000 square feet of buildings and acquired 285 acres of land. So we've really been busy since 2004. The budget document you have is actually going to indicate 25.6 million instead of the 25.8. Last week we received notice from Maricopa County that they needed to make a correction in the assessed valuations, and it's been approved by the State Property Tax Oversight Committee, so we will pick up $200,000. So from a technical presentation standpoint, we'll hold that 25.8 million as a contingency until the board decides on the resources that it wants to provide, the tax and the tuition increase. And once the board makes a decision, then we will be able to allocate those funds. We had a number of presentations at the last board meeting from our content experts on a number of these priorities, but we do also have two faculty initiatives. Faculty and salary inversion has happened over the recession at the point when the district did not have enough resources to provide faculty salary steps for existing faculty, but we hired new residential faculty who had less experience, but we hired them with higher salaries. Some had considerably less experience than our existing faculty. And at this time, we have about 500 or so residential faculty affected by this inversion. Addressing the inversion is important to the retention of our residential faculty and to overall faculty morale. With the One Maricopa approach, all Maricopa employees contribute to student success in our own way by doing our own jobs. But really, it's our faculty who bear the greatest responsibility day in and day out in a classroom with the students. And to that point, also during the recession, we had gotten to the point where only about 45% of the instructional load was being taught by residential faculty, with individual colleges ranging from 35% to 53%. And the balance of courses were taught by our part-time faculty. And having part-time faculty was great. It helped us manage enrollments and enrollment shifts. It helps fill in gaps for specialized instruction. It enriches the learning experience by having practicing professionals in the classroom. But it really can't replace the ongoing permanent core of residential faculty who provide the institutional knowledge, work on the curriculum development, and participate in ongoing student interaction and advisement. And we're working possibly over the next 8 to 10 years to increase the numbers of permanent, ongoing residential faculty with a goal of having 60% of the instructional load taught by our residential permanent faculty. So with the tuition proposal, next month we'll ask the governing board to set tuition for the fiscal year that begins July 4th, 2014. The proposal is to increase the resident tuition rate by $5 per credit hour, so a student taking 30 credit hours per academic year would see an increase of $150 over the academic year. The increase was projected to provide an additional $12.3 million in additional resources. For the property tax proposal, the board's asked to consider a 2% increase in the tax levy. Under this example, a house valued at $100,000 in 2014 would pay $128.96. But in order to keep that cost the same for 2015, the board would need to decrease the tax rate because the value increased. So if the board approves a 2% tax levy, the homeowner then, who paid $128.96 in 2014, would pay $131 next year, a difference of $2.57. So if we're talking about maybe a $200,000 home, the impact then would be double, and a taxpayer would see an increase on average of $5.15. But before the governing board can move forward to adopt a 2% levy increase, we have to follow the steps outlined in state law, and that requires public information and public input. We have to ask the board to approve the proposed budget at the April meeting so that we can have sufficient time to complete the required notification before the board then adopts a budget in May. If the board decides to increase the property tax levy, you'll need to do that with a vote at the May meeting. So I did want to provide a real brief overview, very brief, of where we've been through the recession and the path that we've had to take to arrive at our present situation. So very briefly, just seeing the high points, facing all of these challenges was just daunting. But we did have a lot going for us as a district. We're pretty fiscally conservative, and over half our operating revenue comes from property taxes, which is a very stable resource. We provided a lot of communication and outreach to our Maricopa community to maintain morale. And even though we were not able to provide that much in the way of salary adjustments, we were pretty busy, and our folks are dedicated, and we had a lot to keep us busy. And we were in the middle of a $251 million bond project, so we had a lot to do. State aid declined $61 million. Our workforce development funds, which were supported by sales taxes through Prop 301, sunk like a rock. You just couldn't keep up with how fast sales tax revenue was sinking. We've received $18 million at one time in new property added to the tax rolls year after year. Now we were down to looking at about $6 million. We had limited number of tuition and property tax increases. We also did receive $15 million in federal stimulus money, and that helped us bridge some of the cuts that we had to make. It gave us some time to make some more thoughtful cuts. And it provided that, and it provided protection against further state cuts for a couple of years. And the minute that protection was gone, the state cuts resumed. So a lot of our activities were concerned with spending in ways that would have a minimum impact when we made the reductions so that our students could progress, so that we could move forward as a district, even though we were cutting our expenditures. So in terms of our district revenues, during the recession, we saw 3 big state cuts. And revenues declined for Proposition 301 and from new property added to the tax rolls. The Prop 301 was down about $2.3 million in FY 07-08, which is the year before this chart takes place. And we really can't show it as a cut, but the enrollment growth formula normally would have provided us about $1,000 per full-time equivalent student just in operating alone. And over the recession, we saw an increase of about 16,000 students. So that's 16 million. We didn't get a cut, but we didn't get 16 million added. Just the operating revenue loss of 60 million. And we did increase tuition and property taxes 3 times. So when we look at the impact on our general operating resources, that 3-legged stool, one of those legs is down to about being a stick. So we've gone from, we never hit the 1/3. We've dropped steadily, but at least in 07-08, at the beginning of the recession, and now we're down to 1% in state tax support. So with our general operating fund, even with the additional resources, we had to make internal cuts, sometimes cut and reallocate to keep going, to cover some of our mandatory increase. So this helped along with the revenue increases to adjust to the loss in state aid support. So we implemented the $35 million in budget reductions. We took care of our mandatory costs, which included retirement contribution, employee policy manual adjustments, workers' compensation, compensated absences, operating costs for the new buildings coming online that we were constructing with the bond money, IT maintenance and licensing costs, property and liability insurance costs. We did see some salary adjustments, and we tried to maintain employee take-home pay at a time, as you see, when the employee contribution rate through ASRS was increasing. At our February board meeting, Felicia Ganther told you about the long list of accomplishments and the things that we've done with the planned improvements through our student programs. We saw the launch of the student success with pilot programs such as iStart Smart that expanded into district-wide mandatory orientation, advisement, testing. We looked at improvements in the seamless student experience, including single scholarship applications and a database, a financial aid call center, better staff training, single transcript. Our integrated marketing outreach, recruitment and retention is aimed at better and meaningful student engagement. And we have added faculty positions. Sometimes it was an effort to maintain our ongoing faculty as the state sales tax supported Prop 301 is a limited program that will expire in 2020, trying to move some of our faculty off of that source of funding to a more stable source. And also, through our desire to have the 60% of the ongoing instruction taught by residential faculty, we have added additional faculty positions. And we've transitioned our college safety program from a collection of safety aids and colored shirts to a college real public safety program with certified public safety officers. And we've seen a standardization of safety procedures, and we've benefited not from rule enforcers, but from professional safety advocates. And I think we saw that tonight. It was really inspiring. We increased disability services, which includes things like interpreters for the hearing impaired. And we started the groundwork for the necessary to look at replacing our new enterprise systems, our new computing systems, as our existing systems had reached the end of their life expectancy. So if you have questions, I'm happy to respond.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
I know that you know what I'm going to say, because it's every year.
Yes, ma'am.
So, while the $128,000 home increase is only $2.57, we as board members, when you go out and you try to sell that and say that you that have a home that's $128,000, your property tax increase is going to be $2.57, you're going to be attacked. Because the people that have a $128,000 home may not only experience a $2.57 increase due to the difference in the way that home valuations valuations have gone up or down. So those who have their homes go down will experience less if they live in an area where property values are going down. If you live in an area where your home values are going up, you could experience a 10% increase, not the 2% of $2.57. Because you will absorb in the areas where your property valuation goes up, the loss in valuation in areas it's gone down. So don't be surprised when this is not true in your district. And people come to you and say, my property taxes went up and I'm now paying $60 more or $20 more or $40 more. Because those places that are not feeling the problems. Now, the other issue that's been raised or brought to my attention is that the higher end homes are not selling as well, and the increases in sales that are occurring are not happening as much in the higher end, and their homes aren't selling for as much or recovering as quickly in the values that they had 10 years ago. The homes in this price range are the ones that are selling and are increasing in cost. And because of that, those of you who have a home at $128,000, I don't know when you bought it, because that's pretty low. So if your home is $128,000 or $130,000, let's say, that valuation's going up, and due to comp sales. So even if you have had a decrease and you're in that price range, I dare anyone to show a consistent pattern of only being a $2.57 increase on those property taxes. It's not going to be that way. They're going to be experiencing more because they're the ones that are increasing in value, so they're going to be the ones that are absorbing it. And what price category or what income category is that representing? people who are struggling the most. If that's the value of their home, they're having a tough time. And they're the ones we're going to be increasing this on. So that's my point. Thank you.
Questions? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just had, frankly, some questions of clarification. First of all, you mentioned the faculty inversion, the residential faculty inversion. And I'm sorry, I just got here. I figured out where the light bulbs were recently. So maybe you can walk me through that, so I can understand that. What did that mean?
Want me to try?
You want to talk?
Yeah, Mr. President, Mr. Gutierrez,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
members of the board, let me try a little bit because I've been a little closer to this over the years than Gay has. So it is not unique to Maricopa. It is a situation that can exist in other institutions with basically a step structure and also a placement plan, so that depending on your education, a faculty member's educational level and their years of experience, they get placed in a particular step within the grade they're in. But it's really the years of experience that
It's
relate
tenure.
to the inversion. And what has happened, as Gay was demonstrating to you, over the years of this recession or the lagging economy, there have been very few years when the district has had the resources to grant a step increase. Really, I think just 2 in about the last 6. So what happened was that faculty were not stepping up as they gained experience teaching for our colleges. But faculty newly hired were coming in at a placement schedule where they would have the equivalent level of experience as our longer-term employed faculty, but the new incumbents would be coming in at a higher step because the placement policy provided for a higher step for those years of service that they had somewhere else. So the inversion is that the faculty members have the exact same amount of experience. Our more tenured faculty, the many years more of experience with us, but newer colleagues were coming in and getting paid more than they were. So that's the issue that we're trying to address.
Mr. President, just to comment, obviously, the ideal situation is to have sufficient resources so that the steps would have moved forward appropriately. But wasn't there a policy decision to be made there that those coming in not come in at a higher level? I mean, wasn't there an adjustment that could have been made in terms of those steps rather than allow the inversion to take place?
Mr. President, Mr. Gutierrez, and the members of the board, I think it took a little bit of time for us to realize what was going on. And I also think that there were efforts, very sincere efforts, over a few years. Even though this is coming forward now, it's been at least 3 to 4 years that we've been talking about this in the meet and confer teams. And an element of the proposal that the meet and confer team is working on is adjusting the placement policy.
I see.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. President, one more question. The total increase in terms of tuition, you mentioned it's about $12 million. It's there somewhere. What is the total, not the total increase, but the actual total amount from tuition that is, and what proportion does it represent of the total income, the total revenues of the district?
My staff is going to look that up so that I don't give you.
Don't worry about it. I don't even have a clue. You can make up a number if you like. I'll believe it.
Well, absolutely. Lelut Clout is our budget manager for the district. The smartest person I know, other than Debbie and Rufus. But,
I'm glad you said that. Don't you want to mention President Sarr as well? He's very smart.
Read them their tuition.
The total general tuition with the proposed increase was about...
Come to the microphone, please.
Okay. The general tuition, including the proposed increase, is about $200 $24 million.
Which is what percent of our total revenue?
It's about 20, that's it's about 29%.
29%? And that includes the 12 million, excuse me, Mr. President?
Yes.
That includes the 12 million increase?
That's correct.
So the actual is, currently, is, I get it,
Well,
212.
yeah.
Yeah.
When
I can
we talk
subtract.
about all tuition and fees, that is about 31.8%.
That's with the additional fees?
Yes.
That's with adding fees to that total?
That's including the $12 million.
Right.
$12 million.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank
you.
Mr. President?
Yes, ma'am.
Also another comment that I wish to make. I wanted to thank the Mesa Community College people for coming and providing us with their comments in relationship to the tuition increase. One of the things that I want to bring to the attention of the board and remind the board is we just came back from DC. And we just got basically told by our congressional delegation how they felt about increasing Pell Grants, increasing and doing more, or looking at Pell Grants and doing more when everything they do seems to just get gobbled up by tuition increases, and how they felt about that, and how they look at the community colleges and mostly universities. They are more insulted by the universities' approach to increases that make it where they can never seem to truly help the student in the way that they intend to with the increases in Pell Grants. So the bottom line is, do we want to go to DC and have that again, where that is their attitude and their sentiment about that at some point this has got to stop and that something's got to be done? You know, it's kind of frustrating because I do understand that part of the reason that we're in some of the mess that we're in is not totally our fault. Because, I mean, I look at, like, with tuition increases and needs for more money for, like, the IT things and the services we want to provide for students, and it's very torturing to be a board member because you want to do, and it kind of reminds me of being a parent. I would have loved to have sent my children to Europe to study. I'd love to, but I don't have the money to do that. So and we're trying to do some awesome, wonderful things, and yet at the same time, be responsible and be reasonable and be accountable and to be mindful of how our congressional body feels about tuition increases, how it affects our students, and how it affects the idea and the mentalities of the people in our district. There's comments made, if we're going to continue to raise property tax, we're going to continue to raise tuition increases. Good luck trying to get us to vote for a bond then. You know, it's just kind of like, you know, we can't keep tapping and milking the cow till it drops dead. And so I have some real concerns about some of the things that are happening here. And the IT issue and the IT expenses, to me, it's like, you know, when I see all of the hacking going on and all of the companies that are being hacked, shame on these creeps that are doing this. It's really ticking me off. And I'm really sorry that some people left. I'm glad the media did. But I'm sorry that some people left because the bottom line is, we have to stop blaming certain people for some of these costs and being angry at certain people for some of these costs, because they're not the creeps that are causing it. To everybody, to organizations all around this country. And so to be making comments against certain people, yeah, we've had some bad advice and we've had some bad, but the creeps are who did this. And we need to stay focused on who the enemy is and stop making enemies of each other and focus on what we need to do. I want to publicly blame the legislature because of not funding and not having the funding proper for this district from the state level. Mentioning and making comments about our fantastic budget mentalities of this district to have reserves that then they threaten to sweep because we have too much. Hello, here we are today with this IT creep created mess. Thank heavens we had the budget people that had us some reserves. We should have probably had more even. So it's like, and I want to blame the press because a lot of this that's happening to us on this IT issue and this expense in our budget, things of that nature, the press, by their approach and the way in which they have covered the increasing of the size of this board has contributed to this as well, and the legislature, because they have failed to see that this district is represented by a 5-person board, which is about the same size as what a community college, any other community college around this country is represented by when there's only 70,000 students or 30,000 students. There's boards of 13 for community college districts that are smaller than any one of our community colleges here. And we have a 5-person board, no committees of oversight, no committees of any kind of close-knit commitment or obligations to each of these different colleges. No oversight of a whole lot of things. This 5-member board just isn't capable. We have 10 community colleges. This was set up as a 5-person board for 2 or 3 community colleges. Now we're 10. We did not plan how this board should look, how this district IT should be, or anything else with the growth that this community college system took on. And so the legislature's to blame for not paying attention to how this board is created based on 10 accredited community colleges, for county boards to be the same regardless of how many community colleges they have. This is ridiculous. And so the bottom line is, we need to go to the legislature. Where's Don? We need to go to the legislature and we need to let them know what a mess they've made and how irresponsible this has been. And I said it in 97, 98, 99. Thank you, Chris Bustamante, because he was right there with me trying to help me do it and show them and tell them where this was headed if they didn't stop with the negligence and irresponsibility. And now we're trying to put it on the backs of our students. Now we're trying to put the tuition increases on the back of our students because of the illegitimate, irresponsible negligence of that legislature and all the way up to the governor's office. So the bottom line is, I'm not willing to put this on the back of the students. I'm not willing to put it on the backs of the property taxpayers until we do something to address the issue of coming up with other funding, which we promised we were going to do, and we haven't. Maybe we haven't, I don't know about it. Or do something about educating and getting involved and making sure the people who are elected to the legislature understand community colleges and have a passion and a commitment to community colleges instead of being all Google-eyed about universities and neglecting their responsibilities here, and doing something about the number of people on this board representing 10 accredited community colleges and stop trying to make it a racial issue. Thank you.
Mr. Burke, any?
No comment.
One comment. You've heard my speech last year as well, too. I had the same attitude about increases for students and taxes, and that's simply that we are a governing board that works by setting a set of goals or objectives, and we monitor those on a regular basis, have for years. We have a mission statement that pretty much reflects all of our 4 outcomes, and what's been proposed here and what was proposed last year to use the additional money that we've provided has been done with the ability to keep us competitive, to keep us providing students with the services that are felt to improve their success in the district. And quite frankly, for the last 10 years, we've held our own while increasing both tuition and taxes. My feeling is we need to do something different if we're going to see any movement of the needles on our 4 outcomes. Okay, you're the money person and not the scholar person necessarily. You're obviously very smart, and so is Dr. Glasper, and so is all your bosses. But I just feel it's time that we step back and look at our mission statement. First of all, determine if it's still relevant, if it's still capable of not only maintaining itself, but making improvements in those. Our goals are not unreachable, I don't think, but they're difficult. We've, for the last 10 years, monitoring points have shown that. So when you say we're a $5 increase in tuition, is that going to move the needle, or is that just going to keep us on a status quo? And if our goal as a board is to move the needle, what's it going to take? Is it going to take a lot more money? Is it going to take a lot more taxes? Or is it going to take something that's drastically different in how we've done business for the last 50 years? I leave that to the people who actually are in those offices, in those classrooms every day. Our job is to make sure that we provide to the citizens of Arizona, or Maricopa County, a continuous investment return, a continuous return on their investment. And for the last few years, if you look at our own monitoring reports, we haven't gotten the return on our investment based on the 4 outcomes that we've built based on the mission statement. So I'm inclined not to add any more to it if all we're going to do is continue to do the same old thing. A lot of the initiatives that you brought up tonight and the Chancellor has talked about, I think are great. But so have I thought the same 3 or 4 years ago, and yet we're still looking at the same results. So I think it's up to the district to really take some drastic steps, whether it's this year or next year, to either decide that we're going to stay where we are, or we're going to try to improve our use of the funds that are given to us by the taxpayers and the students to do something much better than we're currently doing based on our 4 outcomes. We talked about developmental education today. As hard as we're working, we haven't seen the results change as a district, that we're still looking at the same dropout rate in our developmental students. We're seeing some great things in small areas. If we continue to do those, hopefully we'll see some better improvement on developmental ed, and we can use that $90 million for something else. But until we do that, we're still at the same place we were a number of years ago. So I hope that between now and our next meeting, when we actually vote on the tuition increase, for example, and down the road where we vote for a tax increase, that we see some, we use the term innovative thinking a lot. That's what I want to see. What can we do? Our mission statement doesn't really say that we provide education for everybody. Maybe that's something we have to start looking at. It would be kind of sad to see the community college do that, but maybe that's what we have to do. The Chancellor's mentioned that over the years, and it takes some moxie to really change how we do things. But if we're going to make improvements, and if that's our goal as a governing board, then we need to see something like that. If we're fine with what we're doing and all we're doing is beating our existing end results, then that's another discussion we need to have. So I appreciate the details that you gave us tonight, and I appreciate some of the comments made by the Chancellor and others, and we'll have that discussion over the next month, I'm sure, many times. But we are where we are, and I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. President, may I make some comments?
Okay.
Mr. Sarr, I would just like to make a clarification. I don't believe that I ever suggested that our mission of open access for developmental ed students should not be a part of our mission. I think that's what you said, that I made that statement, and I've never made a statement like that.
Okay. I mean, just to read the mission statement, it says that the Maricopa Community Colleges provide access. It doesn't say to everybody. It just says to higher education for diverse students and communities. It doesn't say everybody. I'm not saying that we should. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that's the extreme that I think we need to start thinking about if we're going to make a move. Again, it could be that we have to raise tuition by $50 a credit if we're really going to make a difference. But that's for the discussion between now and next month. Oh, by the way, we're going to take a break after this because I need it.
And he's the president. Mr. President, just a comment on tuition increase and the colleges. Look, I applied to be on this board and I look forward to serving on the board for what I think is a fundamentally compelling reason. and that is that community college system provides really the only systematic bridge in this country and in the state to do away with something that's become the theme of the day, and that is the disparity and the growing inequality in our society. This is the way that it can do it, but we also have to recognize the reality of who's coming into community colleges and why. And so it's an extraordinary challenge that the community colleges are facing, that the faculty is facing. And I've been astounded by the passion. Frankly, I assumed there would be great passion, but I just found great passion at Mesa, at Estrella, everywhere I've gone. And I congratulate all of you who are part of this, because this is about social justice. This isn't about credit hours. Ultimately, it's about the future, the social the justice in this society, in this country. Well, let me talk about tuition increase a moment. When I applied for this, I said clearly, again and again, I was interviewed a couple of times, and I was asked each time about this, of course, that for me, it would be the last resort, because I understood, I think all too well, who the students were and the kind of sacrifices they were going through. Certainly there are a few who can afford it and who have parents who can afford it. But just look at the numbers. That's not the case. The amount that we're talking about seems relatively small. It certainly seems relatively small from my perspective, but from their perspective, it's a different world. Then when you look at the totals, $12 million, and contemplate a $12 million cut, and I stand by my position that I have not been persuaded that there isn't $12 million somewhere in the system. I may be wrong, but I have not been persuaded. But that's the challenge I give to the students from Mesa and the students from elsewhere. And all of us who stand here and say absolutely no increase is all right, that's fine, thank you. But what are we going to do about that? Where are we going to find the funding? What kinds of cuts are we willing to bear? Where will we cut them? I just want to say for myself, 68% of young people coming into this, when you get to be 70, everybody's young, so it's all right, coming into the system, need developmental ed. Right? That's precisely why we exist as a system, to offer that bridge to those folks. And increasingly, universities have priced themselves out of the reach of the middle class. That's why we exist as a system. And so that is indeed the challenge. It's a tough one. It's a tough one for those of you who do budgets, because I guess what I'm challenging you to do is persuade me. But I persuade me while I'm of the belief, and I will continue to advocate, that we have to spend more money on developmental ed. What I heard today from Scottsdale was terrific. I want to go into the high schools. I think that we need a massive cultural change in this country where high school is not a finality, but rather just simply part of a process that leads to colleges, that high school is not a finality. That finality was sustainable as a reality in 1950. And even in 1960, it is not sustainable today. And so that cultural change has to take place, and we've got to make that happen. So yes, we have to get much more creative about where we find our funds. We have to get much more creative how we expend our funds. And yes, we have to recognize political realities. We're elected. I suspect that raising tuition is not a popular thing to do.
It is not.
I suspect. I'm going to find out if I vote for this. But we have to become much more creative than we have been, and that's really the challenge. And I'm not suggesting for 1 second, I want to say that to what I now call the CEC. I like that. I used to call them the presidents. that they're not being creative, because what I've seen so far is astounding. I wish most people could see what I saw at Mesa, what I saw at Estrella. I mean, it's astounding. But it's a challenge we face today. We have to find new sources of revenue. I think it's unrealistic that the old sources are coming back. I think it's realistic to find new ones, and we have to get pretty creative about that. So it's going to be a tough few years, Chancellor Glasper. But I suspect you've been through a tough few years already, so you're kind of used to this. And it's going to be tough. But I think there's real hope in moving the system forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is the first read. A month from now, we'll have the actual vote.
Yes.
And in between now and then, we'll have lots of discussion. So
Yes.
I appreciate the discussion tonight.
Thank you.
And we're going to take a 10-minute break because we do have an extended amount of the agenda ahead of us yet. So just a warning to those of you that really have to go home. We'll be back here and that clock at 1:45. The next item on the agenda is our first monitoring report of the evening, the Budget Analysis Report, Fund 1. Ms. Thompson.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is a report that we provide on a monthly basis to the governing board, and it compares actual revenue collections to the budget and also actual expenditures to the budget. It also provides a comparison of the rates of collection and expenditure for prior years, for two prior years. In terms of revenues, we've collected 70.1% of budget through February, and this is the budget report for the first 8 months of the fiscal year through February. As I've indicated in the past, our major revenue source is property taxes at about 60% of budget. We've already passed the first main cycle period for collections of October and November, and in April and May, that's the second major time that we collect our property tax revenues. And to give you some perspective of the 8 months that we have that have passed, of the $253 million collected in property taxes, $178 million alone was collected in October and November. In terms of our expenditures, they compare to prior years, and we expect that because most of our expenditures are in compensation, and we pay our employees every 2 weeks, so it's pretty steady in terms of what we expend each month. And that's my report for the evening.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments? Next on the agenda is our quarterly monitoring report. For this time, it's on Sector 2 of our policies. It's called Chancellor Limitations, and Dr. Glasper, I'll ask you to make some comments, but I think the board would be amicable to actually spending some time reading this over the next few weeks and filling out the paperwork that we have so that we don't take up a lot more time tonight. So I'll give you a chance to give us your thoughts on this.
I will accept your clue. Because when we talked about this at agenda review, we discussed the fact that we would set aside a portion of a study session to discuss it next month. So that would be my request as well.
Any comments you want to make on
No.
what you give us?
No, not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Does it require a motion?
I'm sure everybody out there thanks you.
Does it require a motion?
No.
Just wave back there.
I just wanted to clear, we did the first reading of the budget proposal for 14-15.
Yes.
Was given. Okay.
Yes.
Just want to make sure it's stated in public in there.
Yep, no,
First reading this
we'll
week.
have the second reading on the, will be next. We're moving into community linkage, and we'll have individual reports from governing board members. Mr. Burke.
No report.
Mr. Gutierrez.
I actually gave my report earlier.
Okay. Mr. Lum.
Mr. Burke and I attended the Finance and Audit Committee, and I'm just really impressed with the citizen members of the committee. They do a good job. We had a good presentation, and they asked a lot of very thorough questions. I also attended the Glendale reopening of the arts building in Glendale. It was a nice event. Improve the facility. It's beautiful, and of course, you heard from Glendale this morning. They have one of the best guitar programs, and some of the art programs are just some of the best. And I think people come from all over the valley to attend Glendale's art program. That's my report.
I'll keep mine short. I just can't pass up the opportunity to congratulate two of our athletic teams in the last weekend, the Mesa women's basketball team and the Phoenix College men's basketball team are national champions in Division II. I can't pass up thanking the Republic for putting that in the paper, too. I don't know if you had any influence on that, but thank your husband for it. Internal community, Chancellor's report.
Mr. Starr, members of the board, I would just like to make two very quick statements. And the statement is you mentioned earlier that you would like for us to consider within the next month or so new revenue models and disruptive innovation. I would just like to remind the board that I have continuously requested that developmental education under the seamless student experience be a focus. And as we put resources behind that particular initiative, I believe we can begin to address those two lowest levels of math. And my vision continues that to offer those to students who need them should be free, and that we do that with a disruptive model. We do it with dispersed sites throughout the county, and we do it with some tutors and competency-based curriculum with open education resources, and that we would use that as an opportunity to move the needle on developmental education. And in terms of revenue generation, we'll be coming back to the board with an update on the Maricopa College. But we have had some very successful outreach to our community, to our cities, and our towns, and the Maricopa Community College is on track to be that piece of privatized development in our institution and will be a revenue generator. But you need to feed the cow in order to make sure that it sustains itself and becomes profitable. So those are my updates.
Thank you. Next is the Faculty Executive Council report. Patricia?
Thank you, President Sarr, members of the board, Chancellor Glasper, members of CEC, and guests. In the interest of brevity, I'll limit my remarks to extend an official welcome to Ms. LaKoya Shelton Johnson to our district. We look forward to working with you. And also to extend a thank you to Jim Bowers, who served as interim vice chancellor for the last year, and it was a pleasure to work with him, and we certainly look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Hand is not here anymore, so we're going to pass on. She'll have hers next month. Next, though, for the MAT group is Ms. Bliss. You've been patient. Thank you.
Good evening, President Sarr, members of the board, Dr. Glasper, members of CEC, and guests. My name is Chris Bliss. I am the MAT Employee Group President-elect. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the MAT Employee Group. On behalf of MAT, I would like to welcome LaKoya Shelton Johnson to Maricopa as the new Vice Chancellor of HR. We are excited to begin working with her on moving the Maricopa enterprise forward. Welcome, LaKoya. We would also like to take a minute to thank Jim Bowers for his term as interim Vice Chancellor of HR. He worked diligently to ensure district-wide HR initiatives were moved forward while in this position. Thank you, Jim. The MAT Executive Council recently awarded its first leadership scholarship using funds contributed by MAT employees. Each year, MEC will present the scholarship in the name of an individual or individuals agreed upon by MEC. This year, the scholarship is being awarded in the names of Mr. Burke and Dr. Glasper for their leadership within the district and their work for all employees, specifically MAT employees. It is Mr. Burke's last term, during which he has been a great supporter of following established policy, as well as providing an example for the appropriate role of the governing board. Dr. Glasper has provided an excellent example of leadership, while at the same time respecting the role of the governing board. In tandem, these two leaders have given us an insight into what shared governance can, and one could argue, should look like. The MAT scholarship recipient, Michael, is a student at Mesa Community College on track to graduate in December 2015 with an AAS degree in computer programming. He will be attending NAU through the 2NAU program, working on his BS in technology management. When not in school, Michael works in IT at a large organization and volunteers with an organization called Legacy Adventures, which gets fathers and sons to experience outdoor activities such as camping, helping them get away from technology for a bit. We believe Michael is an excellent example of student leadership and are proud to be able to assist him in accomplishing his goals. The MAT Executive Council would like to remind the Governing Board and CEC about the importance in following established policy and procedure specifically related to disciplinary actions. If there are concerns regarding the current policies and procedures, they can be properly and appropriately changed to address concerns, but should not be deviated from or ignored. Thank you again for the time to speak on behalf of the MAT Employee Group.
Thank you, Chris. Moving on to Vice Chancellor reports. Still with us is Dr. Stephen Helfgott. Before we let you, I want to announce that I've appointed Mr. Gutierrez as the other representative to your board from our board.
Thank you, Mr. President, and welcome, Mr. Gutierrez. We look forward to having you join us. President Sarr, members of the board, I will be most brief. It's my pleasure this evening to formally invite the members of the governing board, as well as my CEC colleagues, to our 2014 Heroes of Education dinner. This year honoring our good friend Vince Roig, the founding chair of the Helios Education Foundation. You heard Helios mentioned earlier this evening. Teacher education is just one of the areas in which we receive support from Helios. The event will take place on Thursday, April 10th, 2 weeks from Thursday, at the Sheraton Phoenix Downtown Hotel, beginning with a VIP reception and our second annual College Heroes Recognition Ceremony at 5:30. That will be followed at 7 p.m. by dinner and our recognition of Vince Roig. Please join us and some 500 of our closest friends for this, our 9th annual Heroes event. In our first 8 years, Heroes has raised in excess of $1.2 million to provide scholarships for students at all 10 of our colleges. We anticipate adding to that total next month, as well as to an exceptional event with an even more exceptional honoree, and we hope you will all be able to join us. Indeed, we look forward to seeing you all on April the 10th.
Thank you, Dr. Helfgott. I'll be there. And I encourage other board members to go. It's a great event. It's one of our annual events that we look forward to. Next on the agenda, Mr. Burke, any updates on the Arizona Association of District Governing Boards?
The AADGB met recently, and we discussed the possibility of holding a governance institute on student success. This would be done with ACCT, and we're polling members, and I will let this board know that if we hold such an event, it would cost the district about $5,000 to do that event. And we would probably hold it here in the area. It is a program to help governing boards focus on student success and to address policies that lead to student success. Anyway, we're going to discuss that at our May 1st meeting, and I will bring more information after that.
Thank you much. Mr. Lum, you want to report on the Arizona School Boards Association?
Yeah, we just want to stay active with the Arizona School Board Association and encourage all board members to participate and attend their meetings. And we had a discussion. We'll be proposing that we present on 2 occasions in July in Flagstaff and in their December meeting on dual enrollment, that we actually do a workshop with.
Good. Thank you. From the ACCT, I just came back from a Government Leadership Institute in Salt Lake City this weekend. Had a great opportunity to spend time with not only board members from Arizona, but throughout the country to learn some of the things that they're dealing with. Among the most heavily discussed topics were those involving disaster issues, both physical and IT-wise. We fell right into that one. And also a good discussion on the best means and processes for evaluating presidents and chancellors. So it was a good effort on the part of everybody there, and I took back a lot of information that I'll make available to the governing board members here shortly. Next on the agenda is the legislative update, and Ms. Dawn Wallace will inform us of everything that's going on down at the Capitol. Take all the 10 hours.
3 minutes.
I don't think that's sincere, Mr. President. President Saar, members of the board, Chancellor Glasper, members of CEC, and everyone present, thank you for allowing me to give you a brief legislative update. Currently at the legislature, it's budget 24/7, so I'll concentrate my comments to how we are doing in the state budget. So I'm happy to report that last week the state Senate passed a $9.2 billion state budget for fiscal year 2015 that did in fact include $1.4 million from Maricopa Community College District. They put that in the STEM line, formerly capital outlay, but I'm happy to report that they recognize that funding as an ongoing funding line over the 3-year period, which means that they will treat it as a base amount. So that is very, very optimistic because you don't want to have to go down there and fight for that same $1.4 million every year, especially if you've invested it in ongoing programs. The rural community colleges did in fact receive full funding of all of their formulas at $4.2 million, and Pima Community College received $600,000 in their STEM line as well. Now, the fight is on now in the House. They have been deliberating for the last 2 days. I'm happy to report that in the House budget, we were included in committee, which means that the intent there in that is that we will stay within the budget, that we have some security in knowing that we only have ourselves to blame if they take us out. So we're pretty solid. I've had informal conversations with the governor's office. While we were not included in their executive budget, they were very open about not standing in our way if we were able to get legislative support, and we were in fact able to get tremendous legislative support from both the Republican caucus and the Democratic caucus, from as high as the leaders, the speaker, majority leader, minority leader on both sides. So we have done relatively well in our pursuit of some additional funding. I will tell you that this evening, there was some belief that the House would go to the floor. They would, in fact, pass this budget through. They recessed several times, and then I think they just gave up. They had 170 amendments to 10 budget bills offered by all parts of both caucuses. So you can imagine the task that they had before them. Mr. Gutierrez is chuckling because I think he has experience in that area as a former member of the legislature.
Yeah, I never experienced 170 amendments. These fellows have taken absurdity to a new height.
So there are several issues still pending, I think, that have caused this breakdown, the most notably having to do with the district-sponsored charter schools. I think some of our board members will understand that issue. There seems to be some consensus building. There's a desire to invest more in CPS. There's a desire to restore some of our access benefits services that were cut as part of the Great Recession, as you call it. And and additional funding for some small items that the governor is clearly very interested in. So what does this mean for legislative session? Well, if they are able to resolve this budget in the next couple of days, I sense that they will want to finish legislative session as quickly as possible. They have only sent 7 bills to the governor, 6 of which she's signed. So I will tell you that generally she signs between 200 and 300. So in 2 weeks, the executive will theoretically receive that many bills on her desk. She has essentially given an informal bill moratorium, meaning she did not want any bills until the budget was solved. So, it's kind of, that's the deal. So we've been doing the numbers, and if they are very efficient, they could literally be out before the 100th day, which is April 26th. I will tell you that there is significant conversations about a CPS special session in later spring. That is due to the fact that the task force that was set up to deal with some CPS reforms, that report is not due until May. So it's it's likely that that will happen. We, just very quickly talking about the one bill that we are tracking and working very hard on, and that is our bill that would allow us as institutions, higher education institutions, to enter into reciprocity agreements with other states to streamline our regulation of our online programs. It is a great effort. We have had great success working with our public and private partners, and we are very close to sealing the deal on the working group in terms of the structure of that reciprocity agreement. Finally, I would like to recognize Dr. Giovannini and President Lara for having made amazing presentations to the Senate Commerce, Energy and Military Affairs Committee. They presented on the corporate college and on our Sun Corridor initiative. I will tell you it was very impactful. I've never seen non-education legislators as riveted on community college presentations. They presented our story within a business context, an enterprise concept. It resonated through the room because there was not a single education person in the room. It was all business community. And I kept getting texts throughout the whole meeting, I can't believe you guys do this. I can't believe you guys do this. So we need to do a little bit more of that storytelling, and we'll work on that for next year. And with that, I am available for questions.
The
Mr.
ABE funding was continued this year as well?
I beg your pardon, I didn't hear.
The ABE funding was continued, same?
Mr. President, Mr. Burke, yes, it remains untouched.
Good.
Continues on to match our federal
Great.
federal funds.
Good. Any other questions? None? Thank you so much.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda talks about our next meetings, which will be April 8th, which is our agenda review and our work session. And we'll be back here for our monthly meeting on April 22nd for the regular board meeting right here. Having taken care of everything we needed to tonight, this meeting is adjourned.